I'll follow the supplied channel voice and begin the first continuous portion now. I'll keep it flowing prose only. So when you say continue, I can carry on from the same working day without recap. The first thing you notice in 1940s Reykjavik, as the herring gutter's apron becomes yours, is the cool salt smell rising from the tubs before dawn. Settle in now, because the work is slow, steady, and there is time enough for every small motion. We are down near the harbour tonight, where the air comes in from Faxaflói with a damp edge, and the roofs of the sheds hold the last dark of morning. Your hands are already learning the day. Your knife waits on the bench. The herring lie silver and blue in their wooden boxes, bright even in poor light, as if they have carried a little of the sea indoors. In 1940s Reykjavik, a herring gutter's day begins before the town has quite decided to wake. You hear boots on boards, low voices by the doorway, and the soft knock of crates being shifted closer to the tables. The floor is wet under your shoes. It smells of brine, fish oil, damp wool, and the sharp clean bite of salt. We stand with you in that half-light, beside women whose sleeves are rolled tight, whose scarves are tied back, whose fingers have known this work longer than their thoughts need to explain it. The herring come in cold. Your hands become cold too. After a while, the cold is simply part of you. The shed is plain, built for use more than comfort, with boards darkened by weather and work. A lamp hangs overhead, giving the fish a pale shine. Outside, Reykjavik is small compared with the cities across the sea, but its harbour carries a large life. Boats have come and gone through the years with cod, coal, mail, barrels, timber, news, and all the ordinary things that keep a northern town breathing. In the 1940s, with war moving across Europe and soldiers stationed in Iceland, even quiet work feels folded into a larger world. Yet at your table, the task stays close. One fish, one cut, one clean movement, then the next. You take the first herring in your left hand, feeling the firmness of it through the chill, and you place it where the blade can do what it knows. The knife is small and sharp, not grand, not decorative, only made for repeated work. It fits your grip because it must. You draw it with care, opening the belly, clearing what must be cleared, sorting the fish for salting or packing as the forewoman has shown you. The motion is quick when practiced, but tonight we take it slowly, noticing how the wrist turns and how the thumb steadies the body. There is nothing hurried in the telling. The day will make enough speed on its own. Around you, other hands move in the same rhythm, and the sound becomes almost like weather. A scrape of blade, a soft thud into a tub, a splash as fish are shifted, the creak of a barrel hoop when someone leans against it. You hear Icelandic voices murmuring over the benches, sometimes close and sometimes blurred by the wooden walls and the gulls outside. Someone laughs once, not loudly, and the sound passes through the room like a small lamp being carried by. Then the rhythm gathers again. Your breath falls in with it. The herring are cold, the salt is rough, and the morning keeps opening. This work belongs especially to women in many Icelandic fishing towns, and Reykjavik has its own share of hands that understand it. In the north, people speak of the herring girls, the Silda Stúlka, who traveled to gut and salt the catch in long seasons of bright nights and hard labor. Here in Reykjavik, the scale and timing may change, but the knowledge is kin to theirs. You learn from watching. You learn by standing shoulder to shoulder. You learn by feeling when the knife is too shallow, when it catches, when a fish is fresh and firm, when the table needs clearing before the next box comes in. The old work has a kind of counting inside it, though you may not count aloud. Your hands measure the morning by fullness and emptiness. A box arrives full, shining, and cold. A tub fills with cleaned fish. Waste is carried away. Salt is brought nearer. Barrels wait with their mouths open. Wooden staves damp and smelling faintly of forest, even here by the sea. You feel grit under your palm where salt has spilled on the bench. You feel fish scales clinging to your cuff. They catch the lamplight in tiny flashes, like pieces of winter sky. We let those details stay with us, because they are the truth of the room. Before the day grows busy, there is a little space for looking around. Through a crack in the doorway, you see the harbour taking shape in grey light. Masts stand thin against the sky. Ropes hang dark and wet. A cart moves somewhere beyond the shed, its wheels complaining softly over uneven ground. The air carries coal smoke from town, mixed with seaweed and tar and the familiar smell of fish. Reykjavik is not sleeping now, but it is not fully awake either. It is in that useful hour when people speak quietly and work begins without ceremony. You are part of that hour. Your place is at the table. The apron at your front is stiff in places from old salt and drying work. Your sleeves scratch a little, where wool meets damp skin. If you are new, the knife makes you cautious. If you have done this for years, the knife almost disappears into the movement, and your attention rests elsewhere. You listen for instructions. You notice who is late. You know which bench is slightly too low, and which barrel leaks if it is filled too quickly. A herring gutter's day is not only the cutting of fish, it is a map of small adjustments, learned slowly, held in the body, and passed from one pair of hands to another. There may be coffee before long, dark and hot enough to warm the fingers through the cup. There may be bread, perhaps rye, perhaps something brought from home and wrapped carefully against the damp. But at the beginning, you work. Your stomach may still be quiet from the early hour. Your shoulders settle into the height of the bench. The first awkwardness leaves. The blade rinses. The boxes shift. The salt smell grows stronger as the morning gathers itself. In the corner, someone shakes out a cloth. Nearby, someone sharpens a knife with a few small strokes, and the sound is thin, patient, and bright. By the time pale daylight has spread across the harbour boards, the early hush has thinned, and the real rhythm of the Reykjavik herring shed begins to hold you. Now the room has more voices in it, but none of them need to rise very far. You can hear the forewoman naming what must be done next, and you can hear the men outside moving barrels, crates, and heavy things that thump against wood. Inside, your world is the bench, the fish, the knife, the tub, the salt. The simplicity is not emptiness. It is full of touch and timing. We stay beside you as the work becomes more certain, as your fingers find the shape of each herring before your eyes have finished looking at it. The skin is slick, the belly gives, the blade passes through. In the 1940s, Reykjavik is changing around you, with roads, radios, soldiers, new buildings, and new money moving through old patterns of fish and weather. Yet the herring still asks for old labor. It arrives in shining quantity, and it cannot wait forever. Fish does not care for speeches or plans. It asks to be handled while fresh, cooled, cleaned, salted, packed, moved. So you work with the calm urgency of practice, the kind that doesn't raise the voice. The herring gutter's skill is not theatrical. It lives in clean cuts, steady wrists, and the ability to stand for hours without letting the work become careless. There is a smell that belongs to this part of the morning, sharper now that the tubs have filled. It is not unpleasant when you know it. It is brine, blood, oil, wood, and the faint mineral scent of cold water. It clings to your hands, your apron, your hair beneath the scarf. Later, you may scrub with soap, perhaps with water that bites at cracked skin, but a trace will remain. That is part of the job. The town itself carries such traces. Down by the harbour, Reykjavik smells of labor as much as weather, and you are one quiet note in that larger breathing. The barrels are worth noticing. They are not just containers. They shape the day. Wooden barrels hold salted herring for storage and shipping, and each one has its own hollow sound when empty. The staves are bound with hoops. The inside smells of damp wood and salt. When cleaned fish are laid in, they must be placed with care, layered so the salt can do its slow work. Salt draws moisture, preserves flesh, and changes the fish in silence. You do not see the whole change at once. You do your part now, and time does the rest. That is one of the comforts of old work. Not everything belongs to the same hour. Your fingers learn the difference between fresh cold and the deeper numbness that comes from too long at the table. You flex them when you can. You rub your thumb against your palm. The knife handle grows familiar, warmed only a little by your grip. Sometimes a scale sticks near your wrist and shines there until you rinse it away. Sometimes a fish slips and you catch it without thinking. We notice these small recoveries with you, because they are part of competence, not perfection. Just the ordinary grace of doing something many times, until the body keeps count even when the mind drifts softly toward home. There are windows, but they do not make the shed cheerful in any grand way. They only admit a washed northern light, soft and grey, spreading across wet boards and pale fish bellies. Outside, gulls call over the harbour with that rough, hungry sound they have in fishing towns. A door opens and lets in colder air. You smell rain before it arrives, or perhaps only the damp that has never left. Reykjavik weather in this season can feel close to the skin, changing without fuss, laying mist over roofs and beads of water on rope. Inside, the lamps still matter. Their glow gathers on the knives and on the salt. You may stand beside someone older, a woman whose hands are nicked in familiar places and whose advice comes in short, practical phrases. She does not need to make the work grand. She may show you how to hold the herring so the cut is cleaner, or how to keep your knife from dulling too quickly on the bench. She may tell you which boats came in early, who has a brother at sea, who heard news on the wireless, and whether the price will be good this week. The talk moves around the work, never stopping it. Words fit between motions, like thread through cloth. When coffee comes, it comes as a small mercy. The cup is hot against your fingers, and that heat feels almost surprising after the fish and water. You hold it close, breathing in steam, the bitter smell of it cutting through salt and oil. Perhaps there is bread with butter, or a little dried fish, or something wrapped from a kitchen where a stove was lit before dawn. You do not sit long unless the work allows it. The pause is modest. Still, it changes the morning. Your shoulders lower. Your jaw unclenches. The roux sounds different when you are only listening. Then the cup is set down, and your hands return. The return is always easier than the beginning. Your place at the bench has remembered you. The fish are waiting. The knife lies where you left it, wiped and ready. You pick it up, and the old rhythm closes around you again, gentle but complete. There is a comfort in that. Many people spend their days wondering what should come next, but here, at least for these hours, the next thing is plain. You take the herring, you cut, you clean, you place it where it belongs. The task repeats, but the repetition is not empty. It steadies the mind like a quiet song learned in childhood. As the morning wears into a fuller light, and the harbour outside grows louder with carts, boots and gulls, your work in the Reykjavik herring shed moves from beginning into endurance. Endurance is not a loud thing in the Reykjavik herring shed, and you feel it arrive quietly, in the calves, in the back, and in the small joints of the hand. The first hour had a beginning to it, a little edge of novelty, even if you had done this work for years. Now the day settles into its middle shape, and the herring gutter's world becomes a circle of reach, cut, rinse, place, and breathe. We stay with that circle. There is no need to hurry the telling, because the work itself has already found its pace. The boxes come nearer as other boxes are emptied, and the floor shows where each crate has been dragged by the darker marks of water and scales. You feel the air grow warmer inside the shed, not truly warm, but warmer than the harbour wind outside. Coats hang from pegs, damp at the shoulders, scarves loosen. A sleeve slips down and is pushed back with the back of a wet wrist. The room smells stronger now, though your nose no longer notices each part separately. Fish oil, brine, wet wool, coffee, wood smoke from town, and cold iron all mingle into the familiar morning. You may begin to understand why people talk while doing repeated work. Speech loosens the hours. A woman beside you may tell a story about a cousin in Akureyri, or a girl who went north for a herring season and came back with new boots. Someone may mention the soldiers seen near the shops, their uniforms strange against Reykjavik streets, their voices carrying foreign vowels into the wind. The world beyond Iceland has become restless and vast, but here your hands remain close to the bench. You listen, answer when you like, and let the knife keep moving through the silver. The herring themselves vary more than a person might imagine. Some are firm and easy to hold, cold from the boat, and smooth as polished metal. Some have bellies softer than the others, and your fingers notice before your thoughts do. Some scales come loose in a glittering smear across the bench, while others cling stubbornly to the skin. You learn to adjust pressure. You learn when to wipe the blade. You learn when a fish must be set aside for someone else's decision. We do not make drama of these judgments. They are quiet judgments. but they are real and they give shape to your skill. Outside, Reykjavik keeps moving around the harbour in its modest northern way. A bicycle passes, a horse may still pull a cart in some errands, though motor lorries are becoming more common in wartime streets. The old and the new stand together without fuss. You hear wheels over boards, boots in gravel, a man calling from the quay, and the distant hollow knock of something heavy set down near a warehouse. Every sound reaches you through wood and weather. It comes softened, as if wrapped in damp air. Your own room answers with knives, tubs, and the steady shifting of barrels. At times the work is divided so simply that it feels almost ceremonial. Some hands gut, some sort, some salt, some pack, some carry away what can't remain at the benches. You do your part, and because you do it well enough, the next person can do theirs. That is one of the quiet comforts of industrial work before it became hidden behind too many machines. You can see the chain of care. You can see how the fish moves from sea to crate, from crate to hand, from hand to salt, and from salt toward a meal in some place you may never visit. The salt is coarse, pale, and stubborn. It works into little cuts before you notice them. When it touches raw skin, there is a small bright sting, and then the sting becomes part of the day. You may rinse your hands, but water brings its own chill. You may dry them on a cloth, though the cloth is never dry for long. The body makes bargains with work. It accepts the ache in one shoulder, the damp hem, the numb thumb, because the task is plain and the day is moving. We let that acceptance remain gentle. It is not surrender, it is knowledge. By late morning, the Reykjavik herring gutter's bench has become a small record of everything your hands have done. The knife marks in the wood are old and new, crossing each other like narrow roads. Salt grains gather in the corners. A scale glitters near a knot in the board. The tub at your side has been emptied and filled more than once, and its rim is slick where your sleeve has brushed it. You know the table now in the way a worker knows a place, not by looking at it, but by leaning into it for hours. A forewoman, or an older worker trusted by everyone, may walk the line with a face that misses very little. She notices if a barrel is filled badly, if fish are not cleaned neatly, if someone is tiring and needs to change position. Her authority is not loud. It comes from experience, from seasons survived, from knowing how much salt is enough and how quickly a catch must be handled. You feel her presence as part of the order of the shed. When she speaks, you listen. When she nods, the work continues, and the room returns to its low murmur. You might think of pay once in a while, because wages sit under every working day like a hidden flaw. Some women are paid by the hour, some by the amount of fish handled, depending on the place, the season, and the arrangement. In herring work across Iceland, speed could matter because the catch came in bursts, and a good worker could earn money that made a difference at home. But while your hands are moving, money becomes distant. The near world is the blade and the herring. The far world is rent, food, cloth, boots, and the small hope of something saved. When you pause to straighten your back, you may feel how the whole body has been helping. The knees, the hips, the neck, the shoulder blades, even the muscles between the ribs have taken part. A herring gutter does not only work with the hand that holds the knife. You stand in cold air, on wet boards, under a plain roof, and your body makes itself useful from head to heel. We notice this without pity. There is dignity in seeing the whole of a task. The work is repetitive, yes, but repetition is still labor, and labor has a weight. The herring has its own history before it reaches you, though you do not need to think about all of it. It moved in dark water with thousands of others, its body turning with currents, light, hunger, and instinct. It was found by fishermen reading sea and season, hauled aboard, chilled by air, and brought toward the town. By the time it lies in your palm, the wildness has become work. The sea has entered the shed. Your knife is one of the last human steps before preservation begins. Salt will carry the fish forward, but you are the threshold. And as noon draws nearer, the morning's first strength begins to soften, and the work in the Reykjavik shed turns toward the small rituals that help people last through a long day. You do not leave the harbor entirely at midday. Even if you step outside for air, the harbor follows you. It is in the smell of your apron, the wet shine on your shoes, the salt drying at your cuffs. Outside the shed, the light may be brighter than you expected, a flat northern brightness on corrugated roofs, rope coils, puddles, and the sides of boats. You stand for a moment and let the air move over your face. It is cold enough to wake the skin. Somewhere nearby, gulls argue over scraps with a roughness that makes the human voices seem soft. Lunch is usually practical, made to fit around work rather than stop the day completely. You may have bread, butter, cheese if there is some, fish, potatoes, or a little meat when the household can spare it. Coffee matters. In Iceland, coffee has long been more than a drink. It is warmth, company, a pause, a small ceremony that can fit into poor weather and tired hands. You hold the cup carefully, perhaps with both hands, because your fingers are cold and the steam is kind. We sit with you in that pause, where the day loosens but doesn't end. The conversation may change at midday. Morning talk often belongs to news and arrivals, but lunch talk belongs more to home. Someone mentions a child with a cough, a mother needing coal, a brother at sea, a rented room too damp in winter. Someone else talks about cloth, soap, prices, or a dance that might happen if the weather clears and the work doesn't run too late. Reykjavik in the 1940s is alive with such mixtures, old domestic worries set beside wartime shortages and sudden foreign influences. You listen while chewing slowly, feeling bread soften with coffee's bitterness. If you are young, perhaps the older women watch you with a mixture of kindness and practical judgment. They know whether you are trying. They know if your hands are blistered. They may tease you gently if you flinch at the cold water, because teasing can be a form of welcome when it doesn't cut too deep. If you are older, you may be the one who notices the new girl standing too stiffly, wasting strength she will need later. You may tell her to lower her shoulders. You may show her how to rest without seeming to stop, which is one of work's quiet arts. There is no grand dining room for this. Perhaps you sit on an upturned crate, or stand near a wall, or perch where the wind does not come directly through the doorway. The cup leaves a ring on the board beside you. A crumb sticks to a damp fingertip. Someone unwraps food from paper or cloth. The paper becomes soft with steam and cold. You may hear the church bell from town if the wind carries it right, or only the nearer sounds of gulls and engines. The harbor keeps talking through every pause, and you remain part of its language. In Reykjavik, the working day does not belong only to the workplace. It belongs to the household as well. Even while you rest, you may be thinking of water to carry, stockings to mend, a stove to tend, or washing that will never dry quickly enough in damp weather. Many women who gut herring do not stop being workers when they leave the shed. They move from paid labor to home labor with little ceremony. This is not a sharp complaint in our telling, but it is an honest fact. Your day has rooms inside it, and each room asks something of you. The war years bring their own texture to those rooms. Reykjavik has soldiers, barracks, airfields, new roads, and money moving in ways that surprise older habits. Some goods are scarce. Some wages are better than before. Some families are stretched by change, while others find work they had not expected. The harbor, always central, becomes even more watched, more used, more connected to distant powers. Yet the herring shed stays close to hand. It is still wet wood, cold fish, salt, knives, aprons, and women making order from abundance. History may pass through, but it passes through the ordinary. When the pause ends, it does not end with a bell in every place. It may end because someone says the next boxes are ready, or because the forewoman looks toward the benches, or simply because everyone knows the time. You fold cloth around what food remains. You drain the last coffee, feeling the bitter warmth leave your mouth. Then you tie your apron again, tighten your scarf, and return to the bench. The knife waits as if no time has passed. The first fish after lunch feels cold enough to startle you again, and then your hands remember their way. There is a sleepy heaviness that can come after eating. Even in a cold shed, it settles behind the eyes and in the arms. You answer it with rhythm. The blade moves, the tub receives. The salt waits. If you think too much about the length of the afternoon, it grows longer, so you do not think of it all at once. You think of this box, then this fish, then this clean place on the table. We keep the same scale in the telling. We do not climb above the work too far. We stay where the hands are working. The afternoon light in Reykjavik can be low even when the day is not old, depending on season and cloud. It enters the shed at an angle and shows the dampness on everything. The edge of a knife flashes and disappears. A wet floorboard shines like dark glass. A strand of hair escapes a scarf and clings to a cheek until it is pushed back with the wrist. Someone hums a little tune, maybe without knowing it. The tune has no need to become a song. It is only a thread to pull the mind through another half hour of fish. You may notice the small economies of motion more clearly after lunch, because tiredness teaches the body to be wise. You stop lifting your elbows too high. You draw the fish closer instead of reaching too far. You place the knife where your hand can find it without looking. You let the table support what it can support. These tiny choices save strength grain by grain, the way a household saves sugar or coal. Good work is not always faster work. Sometimes it is work that knows how to continue without spending itself too quickly, and that knowledge feels quiet. The herring gutters of Reykjavik would have known weather not as scenery, but as a partner in every day. Rain made the walk home heavier. Wind pushed at skirts and coats. Cold found the cracks in gloves and doors. Damp made laundry slow. Bread precious, and warmth something to be guarded. Yet weather also marked time. A clear morning lifted the mood. A soft snowfall hushed the street. A foggy harbor made the lamps look tender and far away. When you look up from the bench and see the window clouded with moisture, you are reading the day through glass. Afternoon talk can thin out. People save breath. The first lively stories have been told, and now voices come in shorter turns. A question, an answer, a small joke, a reminder to move a barrel. The work itself becomes the main conversation, and you hear it as if the shed has one patient heartbeat. Scrape, rinse, place. Scrape, rinse, place. Boots shift on wet boards. A tub is lifted with a grunt. A door latch clicks. We let those repeated sounds soften the room, because a sleeping mind can rest inside repetition when the repetition is kind. Still, there is a tension in every repeated movement. A dull knife makes poor work and tires the hand. A crowded table makes mistakes more likely. Too little salt can spoil what many people have labored to catch and prepare. Too much roughness wastes good fish. You do not need a lecture to know this. The knowledge is in the glances exchanged across the bench, in the quick correction from an older worker, in the way everyone understands that freshness has a clock inside it. Herring work asks for steadiness, and steadiness is not careless. It is calm attention, repeated well. By the middle of the afternoon, the work has changed again, not in its method, but in the way it feels inside the body. Your feet know the floor now, including the uneven board near the left side of the bench. Your hand knows the knife, including the little ridge in the handle that presses against the base of your thumb. Your ear knows the room, including whose steps are coming near before you look up. This is how a workplace becomes familiar, not through beauty alone, though there is beauty here, but through use. You belong to it because you have leaned, lifted, cut, rinsed, waited, listened, and returned. The Reykjavik herring shed has entered your senses. There may be a moment when a fresh delivery comes in and the room stirs again. Boxes scrape across the threshold. Cold air follows them. The newest herring are brighter, stiffer, carrying more of the sea in their shine. You straighten without meaning to. Everyone makes space. The floor grows wetter near the door. A man says something about the boat, the catch, the weather outside the bay, or the delay at the quay. His words matter, but only briefly, because the fish are here now. News becomes labor. Labor becomes rhythm. You take the next herring in your hand. The sea is never far from your mind, even indoors. You may have family on boats. Many people in Reykjavik do, directly or through cousins, neighbors, or friends. Fishing towns are held together by lines that run from kitchen to harbor and back again. A storm is not an abstract thing when someone you love works under it. Yet in this shed, the sea has become manageable for a while. It has been portioned into boxes and tubs. You cannot command the weather, but you can clean this fish, salt that barrel, and wipe this blade. The small task steadies the larger fear. If your hands ache, you may switch grip slightly. If your back aches, you may shift your weight from one foot to the other. If your thoughts wander, they may wander toward home, toward a lamp in a window, toward children released from school, toward a room where socks hang near the stove. The mind is allowed its small travels while the hands remain at work. We travel with you gently, never too far from the bench. The scent of salt brings us back. The cold fish brings us back. The voice of the forewoman brings us back. A person can live inside repeated labor and still notice fine differences. Today the herring may be smaller than yesterday. Today the salt may have clumped from damp. Today the light may be better, the floor colder, the coffee stronger, the talk quieter. A newcomer would see only sameness, but you begin to see variation, which is one of the secret gifts of routine. It teaches the eye to notice what would otherwise pass unseen. The angle of a barrel hoop, the color of a fish's gill, the way a tired worker smiles with only the corner of her mouth. The tools are few, and that gives each one a presence. The knife first of all, then the tub, the cloth, the barrel, the scoop or hand for salt, the apron, the crate. None of them are complicated, yet each can be used well or badly. The barrel can be filled neatly or carelessly. The knife can be kept sharp, or allowed to drag. The tub can be placed where it helps, or where it blocks the knee. You learn the quiet arrangement of things. You build a little island of order at your place in the long working room. In some sheds, the finished barrels are marked for buyer, grade, or destination. In others, records are kept nearby, with names, amounts, and dates written in practical script. You may not handle the paperwork, but you know it matters. Industrial work depends on counting, even when the hands are doing wet and physical tasks. Fish becomes weight, number, barrel, shipment, wage, account. Yet the counting begins with touch. Before any ledger, your palm has held the herring. Before any shipment, your knife has opened it. The official world rests on the quiet accuracy of your hands. The smell of the barrels changes as they fill. Empty wood smells cool and faintly sweet, like a memory of trees. Salt smells dry at first, then wet, mineral, and heavy. Herring brings oil and sea. Together, they make the smell of preservation, a smell that belongs to cellars, ships, winter kitchens, and markets far from the original catch. You may never see where this barrel goes. Perhaps it will feed people in Iceland. Perhaps it will travel farther. But your part of it is intimate. You have touched what someone else will later open, cook, serve, and eat. There is a humility in that distance. The worker rarely sees the whole life of the thing they help make. A herring gutter in Reykjavik may not know the table where the salted fish will appear, or the child who will taste it, or the shopkeeper who will weigh it out. Yet the connection exists. It passes through wood, salt, trade, weather, and human need. We can rest in that thought without making it grand. The work is useful. Usefulness can be enough. In a hard climate, in a changing decade, in a town by the sea, enough is a strong word. As afternoon deepens and the day's catch is slowly brought under order, the work begins to lean toward finishing, though finishing is still some distance away. You can tell when the room has turned a corner. The pile of untouched boxes is smaller. More barrels stand filled or nearly filled. The floor shows the pattern of a day that has spent itself honestly. Water trails crossing salt spills, scales, footprints, and darker places where tubs have rested. The air is thick now, but your body is too used to it to object. You may feel tired in a deep, even way, the kind that doesn't ask for complaint. It simply sits beside you. We let it sit there, while your hands continue their round. The end of a herring gutter's shift is not only the end of cutting, It is cleaning, sorting, carrying, rinsing, wiping, checking, and putting things where tomorrow can find them. Before that comes the last stretch of fish, which can feel longer than the first. You may watch the remaining boxes with a private hope that no more will arrive. Then a door may open, and more may come after all. Work by the sea is like that. It follows the catch, the tide, the boat, the buyer, the weather. The clock matters, but it is not the only master. If the day has gone well, the shed holds a mood of tired satisfaction. Not celebration, not relief yet. Just the sense that many hands have done what needed doing. You see it in the way people move, less talkative but still attentive. You see it in the filled barrels standing like plain wooden promises. You hear it in the lower pitch of voices. Someone may begin to think aloud about supper. Someone else may wonder if there will be enough hot water at home. Small thoughts return as the large task loosens its hold. Your mind turns toward evening. Before evening, there is still the matter of the last fish. The last fish is not special, though it can feel like it should be. It receives the same motion as the first. You take it in hand, cut, clean, and set it with the others. This is a quiet lesson that repetitive work teaches better than words. A thing does not become less deserving because you are tired. The final motions matter too. You may not perform them beautifully, but you perform them carefully enough. That is often the standard by which a working day is truly finished. Water is brought for rinsing benches, and the sound changes from cutting to washing. It is a softer, broader sound, cloth over wood, water poured, tubs emptied, blades cleaned, waste carried out. The smell shifts as well. Fresh water wakes the salt and fish oil again, lifting them into the air for a moment before they settle back. Your hands, freed from the knife, may feel oddly light. The fingers uncurl slowly. The thumb complains. A small cut you had forgotten announces itself underwater. You breathe through the sting, because the day is almost done. The knives are wiped with care. A working knife is personal, even when it belongs to the shed. You do not leave it dirty if you have any pride in the task. You rinse away scales, check the edge, and place it where it will not be knocked to the floor. The handle has darkened from many hands. The blade may show scratches from long use. It is not delicate, but it is respected. In such tools, you can feel the years before you. All the workers who stood in similar rooms, with similar weather pressing at the walls, making similar motions. Cleaning the floor is its own labor. Water carries scales into corners if you let it. Salt clings stubbornly. Bits of fish must be gathered and removed. The wet boards reflect the lamps more clearly once cleared, and the room seems larger without boxes crowding every path. You may sweep or rinse, push water toward a drain, lift a tub to empty it outside, and return with the cold air following your skirt. The body that has been standing all day now bends and lifts differently. It asks for rest, but work has a few more small requests to make. Someone may open the door wide to clear the air. Evening comes in at once. It smells of harbour water, coal smoke, wet rope, and town streets cooling under cloud. The shed breathes out its warm fish-heavy air and takes in the sharper weather. You look toward the quay and see the day changed. Morning's grey has become evening's grey, deeper, with lamps appearing in windows and on posts. Reykjavik does not glitter. It glows modestly, in scattered panes and practical lights, each one belonging to a room where someone is cooking, mending, talking, or sitting down at last. There is often paperwork or tallying at the edge of such work, though it may not be yours to do. Someone counts barrels. Someone notes what has been finished. Someone checks whether the salt has held, whether the lids are right, whether the markings are clear. Industry depends on these quiet end-of-day reckonings. They do not feel poetic when you are tired, but they matter. A day's work must be made legible to the people who buy, sell, ship, and pay. You may stand nearby, wiping your hands, while your own body keeps a different account in aches. Your apron comes off stiffly. It may resist being folded because damp cloth remembers the shape of work. You rinse what can be rinsed, hang what can be hung, and accept that some smells will travel home with you. The scarf at your head feels tight when you loosen it. Hair beneath it is flattened and cool. Your hands look pale, wrinkled from water, reddened near the knuckles, nicked in small places. They are ordinary hands, but after a day like this, they seem almost separate from you, as if they have lived through their own long weather of salt. The other women are doing the same small leaving rituals. Sleeves are pulled down, coats are buttoned, food cloths are gathered, a cup is returned to a shelf. Someone searches for a glove, someone laughs at the state of her cuffs. Tired people can still be gentle with one another, especially when the day has been shared. You may not speak much now. There is no need. The companionship of labor does not always require many words at the end. Standing together in the smell of fish and cold air can be enough acknowledgement for one day. And when the shed door closes behind you, the work does not vanish, but changes shape, becoming the evening walk through Reykjavik with salt still on your skin. The first steps outside feel strange because the ground is no longer the shed floor. Your feet adjust to gravel, boards, or uneven street, and your ears widen to the harbor again. The wind touches places the apron covered. It finds your knees, your throat, the damp edges of your sleeves. You may pull your coat closer and begin the walk home with other workers, or alone if your street lies another way. Behind you, the herring shed holds its cleaned benches in dimness. Ahead, Reykjavik waits with lamps, supper smoke, and the muted hum of evening. The town is not large, so distances can feel intimate. You pass warehouses, sheds, perhaps a shop window with goods arranged plainly, perhaps a bicycle leaning near a wall. Wartime Reykjavik may offer sights older residents still find odd. Military vehicles, foreign soldiers, new construction, unfamiliar supplies moving through the port. Yet beside these changes, the older town remains. Houses stand against weather, laundry struggles on lines, children hurry indoors. A dog barks somewhere behind a fence. You carry the herring day through these streets, and the streets receive you as one of their working people. Your hands may smell of fish even through soap later, and you know this before you reach home. It is not shameful, it is evidence. Many towns by the sea know such smells as part of their economy, their meals, their clothing, their stories. In Reykjavik, fish has long been more than food. It is wage, trade, habit, identity, and weather-bound fortune. You have spent your day helping preserve a small silver creature that once moved unseen beneath waves. Now the smell of that labor rises from your sleeves when you lift your hand to adjust your scarf. If you stop at a shop, you are aware of how you look, though perhaps no one else cares much. Work clothes speak for themselves. You might buy bread, coffee, milk if there is some, or ask after something needed at home. Money earned from fish work may pass quickly into food, rent, fuel, repairs, and the thousand small costs that keep a household standing. You count coins in a palm that still feels tender from the knife handle. The shop air smells different from the shed, drier, with paper, wool, coffee, soap, and perhaps a sweetness near the counter, and that difference feels clean. At home, the doorway has its own smell. Every home does. It may be coal smoke, wool drying near heat, boiled potatoes, milk, soap, damp boots, and the faint closed-in warmth that gathers behind walls in cold weather. You step inside and bring the harbor with you. Someone may look up, a child may speak before you have your coat off, a kettle may be waiting, or perhaps you must light the stove yourself. The working day has ended in one place and opened in another. We follow softly, because the herring gutter's day is not complete until the body has found shelter. Washing is slow when water must be heated or carried. You do what is possible. You scrub your hands with soap, paying attention to the nails, the knuckles, the small cuts where salt has bitten. Warm water feels almost luxurious after the shed, even if it cools quickly in the basin. The skin stings, then eases. Fish oil is stubborn. It lingers in faint traces, especially around the fingers. You may rub with a cloth until the skin reddens. Then you stop, because supper must be made, stockings must be checked, and the evening has its own work. Supper may be simple, and simple food after cold labor can feel generous. Potatoes, fish, bread, soup, coffee again because coffee belongs to tired evenings as surely as to early starts. You sit if you can. The chair feels different after standing all day, almost too still at first. Your legs throb quietly, then begin to understand that they are allowed to rest. The room sounds are smaller than the sheds. A spoon against a bowl, a stove shifting heat, someone breathing through a tired nose. Rain beginning against a window. The world narrows kindly around the table. If there are children, they may want the story of your day, though they already know parts of it by smell and habit. You might tell them there were many fish, or that the floor was colder than usual, or that someone spilled salt in a great white scatter. You do not need to make the story large. Children often understand small details better than adults imagine. A scale caught in your cuff may interest them more than any account of wages or shipments. You may find one still shining there and let them see it, a tiny piece of sea light on cloth. If you live with other adults, the evening conversation may turn around practical things. Who needs boots mended? Whether coal will last? Which boat came in? Whether work will start early again tomorrow? Whether a letter has arrived? In the 1940s, news comes through wireless, paper, rumor, and harbor talk, each carrying the wider world into rooms that still need sweeping. You may listen while mending a seam or drying a cup. The day has made you quiet, but not empty. Your thoughts move slowly, warmed by the stove, loosened from the bench, still smelling faintly of brine. The body remembers the work after it stops. When you close your hand around a cup, the fingers may curl as if around a fish. When you blink, you may see the pale flash of herring skin. When you hear water poured, you may think for a moment of rinsing the bench. This is how labor follows a person into rest. It does not always leave at the door. It becomes echo, scent, and motion stored in the muscles. We let that echo be gentle. It is the mind laying down its tools one by one. There may be a little mending before bed, because clothing used for work wears quickly. Apron ties fray, sleeves grow thin, stockings need attention. A glove develops a hole at the thumb. You hold fabric close to the lamp and work the needle through with slower fingers than usual. The room is dim, and the needle catches light in brief silver points, not so different from the fish scales that flashed all day on the bench. Thread, knife, herring, needle, salt, cloth. The hands move from one small task to another. They know the comfort of useful repetition. If you are young, perhaps evening offers a little walk, a meeting with friends, a dance when there is time, or a cinema if money and schedule allow. Reykjavik is not only work. Even in hard years, people look for music, gossip, courtship, warmth, and brightness. But after a long day gutting herring, pleasure may also be quiet. Sitting near a window, hearing others talk, letting your feet dry, letting your hair loosen, watching steam lift from a cup. The day's labor makes small comforts larger. A dry sock can feel like kindness. A warm lamp can feel like wealth. If you are older, you may measure the evening differently. You may think of tomorrow's strength and choose rest. You may know exactly how late you can stay awake before the morning becomes too hard. Experience teaches such calculations. It teaches when to speak, when to save words, when to sharpen the knife, when to soak the cloth, when to go to bed even though the household still murmurs around you. There is wisdom in not spending the last coin of energy. Work will return with the tide, the boats, the forewoman's voice, and the pale boxes of herring. The bed, when it comes, is not only furniture, it is release from standing, from cold boards, from the bend of the neck over the table. You may lie down and feel the body continue moving for a while. The wrist remembers the cut, the shoulder remembers the lift, the feet remember the wet floor. Outside, Reykjavik settles into night with wind at corners and harbor sounds thinning into distance. A boat rope knocks softly somewhere. A motor fades. The town is held between sea and dark, and you are held inside a room that smells of wool, soap, and sleep. But before sleep fully takes you, The day may pass once more through the mind, not as a story, but as fragments. The first cold fish, the steam from coffee, the older woman's hand correcting yours, the filled barrels, the sting of salt, the walk home under low light. These fragments do not demand anything now. They drift. We let them drift with you. The work has been done for today, and tomorrow is not yet asking. For a while, there is only the bed, the breathing room, the dark window, and the slow unwinding of hands. Some days are not exactly like this, of course, because herring work depends on season, catch, weather, and the needs of the processing place. There are days when too many fish arrive and everyone stays longer than planned. There are days when fewer come and the benches feel strangely open. There are days when the wind is so hard that every door seems to argue. There are days when laughter comes easily and days when everyone works in tired quiet. Yet the pattern remains recognizable. Reykjavik, the 1940s. The herring gutter, the knife, the salt, the harbor, and you. On a lighter day, you may have more space to notice the craft of others. The person packing barrels has a rhythm as precise as any musician's hand. The person weighing or checking the fish has an eye trained by years. The person carrying tubs knows how to balance weight without wasting steps. The person cleaning knives knows how to protect an edge. No part of the work is invisible once you learn to look. We look slowly, the way the job itself teaches us to look, until the whole shed becomes a web of practiced motions. On a heavier day, the room may feel crowded with fish and time. More boxes arrive before the old ones are cleared. The smell thickens. The floor grows treacherous with water. The forewoman's voice becomes firmer. Your shoulders tire earlier. Even then, the work is not chaos, because repetition gives people something to hold. Each person returns to the known motion. The knife finds the line. The salt finds the barrel. The tub fills and empties. In a life where many things can change without asking permission, the known task can become a kind of rail. The herring itself was a powerful part of Iceland's modern working life, though it did not belong only to Reykjavik. In northern towns especially, herring seasons brought sudden crowds, wages, music, exhaustion, and whole communities shaped around the arrival of silver fish. Reykjavik's harbour had a broader mixture of fishing, trade, administration, and wartime movement, but herring still passed through hands like yours. The job linked the capital to older coastal rhythms. It reminded the town that even as roads improved and offices grew, Iceland still leaned close to the sea for money, food, and meaning. You may not think of yourself as part of an industry while standing at the bench. Most workers do not live inside such large words. You think of the next task, the state of your hands, the woman's story beside you, the weather at the door, and whether your boots will dry by morning. But history is often made of people not thinking historically. It is made of small necessary motions repeated until they feed towns, fill ledgers, change families, and leave faint marks in photographs. Your work is ordinary from inside it, and ordinary things are often what endure longest. Photographs from such work, when they exist, can make it look still. Women lined at benches, barrels in rows, fish shining in heaps, aprons pale against dark walls. But the real thing is never still. The cold moves, the smell rises, the hand cuts, the shoulder shifts, the floor creaks. Someone coughs, someone laughs, someone wipes her forehead with a wrist because her fingers are wet. We give the photograph back its movement in our telling, and we place you inside it, not as a distant figure, but as the one whose hands know the knife. In the later part of a week, the body may carry several days at once. Monday's small cut has not fully healed. Tuesday's ache sits under Wednesday's work. Thursday's damp coat smells faintly of all the mornings before it. The week becomes layered, like fish in salt. You learn to protect yourself where you can. You wrap a finger. You bring an extra cloth. You stand near someone whose talk makes the hours kinder. You save a little coffee. These are not grand strategies, but they are how workers survive long routines. They are the small wisdoms of continuing. There is also pride, though it may not announce itself. Pride in a clean barrel, pride in keeping pace, pride in being trusted with the work. pride in wages brought home, pride in not wasting fish, pride in standing among others and being counted as someone who can do what needs doing. This kind of pride is plain and durable. It does not need applause. It lives in the way you hang your apron, wipe your blade, and leave the bench ready for another morning. We notice it quietly, because quiet pride is still pride. When the next morning comes, it may feel as if the previous day has only folded itself and waited for you. The harbor air is cold again. The shed smells familiar before you even open the door. The benches have dried a little, though not completely. Barrels stand ready. Salt is piled where someone left it. A knife lies in its place. You step inside with sleep still at the edge of your eyes, and the room receives you without surprise. In the 1940s REYKJAVIK herring shed, a day is never entirely separate from the day before it. The first touch of cold fish is still cold, no matter how many mornings you have known it. That is one thing repetition does not erase. It only teaches you not to be startled for long. You take the herring, find the grip, and begin again. Around you other women do the same. The room fills with the day's first sounds, the small scrape of metal, the muted splash, the creak of wood, the low greeting offered across a bench. We begin again with you, because working life often begins again before it explains itself. The body remembers first. A new worker might imagine that speed is the whole skill, but you learn that speed without care only makes trouble. A torn fish wastes value. A dull knife wastes strength. A messy bench wastes attention. Care is not slowness. Exactly. It is the right amount of attention placed in the right moment. The experienced herring gutter can move quickly because each motion has been made clean over time. You see this in the older hands, how little they seem to force, how the fish turns almost willingly beneath their fingers. Good work often looks easier than it is. In winter, if the air is sharp enough, your breath may show near the doorway. In milder weather, dampness replaces cold and settles into cloth with patient persistence. Either way, the body meets the morning through weather first. You may stamp your feet before beginning, or warm your fingers around a cup if one is near. The shed is shelter, but not comfort in the modern sense. Its comfort lies in purpose, in company, in knowing where to stand and what to do. That can be a real comfort. We do not need softness everywhere to find rest. The town outside may be waking to errands unlike yours. Office clerks with papers, shopkeepers unlocking doors, children on their way to school, soldiers moving between posts, housewives planning the day's meals, fishermen repairing gear. Each person carries a separate morning, yet the harbor draws many of them into relation. Fish may pass from boat to shed, from shed to shop, from shop to kitchen, from kitchen to table. Your work sits near the beginning of that chain. It is wet and cold and repetitive, but it reaches farther than the bench. Every clean fish is a small message sent into life. The radio, if someone has one nearby or speaks of what they heard, brings the outer world into the room in pieces. News of war, news of ships, news of governments and battles and names that feel far from the bench. You may listen, but the fish in your hand insists on nearness. This contrast is part of the decade. Great events press against small rooms, and small rooms continue to require sweeping, cooking, gutting, washing, and sleep. We keep both truths in view, but we do not let the distant noise take over. The knife returns us to here. At times there is a pleasure in competence that feels almost like quiet music. The fish lands properly in your palm. The cut opens cleanly. The waste falls away. The cleaned herring joins the others. Nothing catches, slips or tears. For a few minutes, the work feels smooth enough that thought loosens completely. You are neither bored nor excited. You are simply doing. This is one of the state's sleeplessness know in another way. The mind settling when nothing demands sharp edges. Work can sometimes make such a place inside the body. A plain room of rhythm. A herring gutter's hands are never ornamental during the season. Nails are kept practical. Skin roughens. Small wounds come and go. Cold water reddens the fingers. Salt dries them. Fish oil softens them in another way. If you own a little cream or fat for the skin, you may use it sparingly at night, rubbing it in before sleep and hoping it holds until morning. The hands are tools, but they are also yours. You feel tenderness toward them sometimes, perhaps while watching them rest in your lap after supper, open and still at last. Clothing carries the routine too. A sturdy dress or skirt, an apron, wool stockings, a scarf for the hair, shoes or boots that can bear damp floors. Nothing is chosen for display in the shed, yet each thing matters. A loose sleeve is a nuisance. A poor shoe makes the whole day harder. A scarf tied badly slips at the worst time. Work teaches clothing to become honest. It also teaches the wearer to value repair. A patched apron is not a failure. It is an apron that has stayed in service, and service has its own beauty. When we speak of how Reykjavik herring gutters use their days, we are speaking of time divided by necessity. Morning belongs to arrival and the first cold cuts. Midday belongs to coffee, bread, and the brief unbending of the back. Afternoon belongs to endurance, packing, cleaning, and the patient closing of tasks. Evening belongs to home, washing, food, mending, talk, and sleep. But within that simple pattern live countless small textures: the scrape of a knife, the warmth of a cup, the smell of a damp scarf, the flash of a scale, the wordless nod from someone who knows your work. A day may also include waiting, and waiting has its own feel in a fish town. Waiting for the boat, waiting for the catch to be brought in, waiting for salt, waiting for instructions, waiting for a storm to ease. During waiting, the body does not fully rest, because it expects to be needed. You may sit with your coat still on, or stand near the doorway, watching the harbour for movement. Conversation becomes thinner then. Everyone listens for the sign that work is about to begin. Waiting near fish work is never empty. It is attention held in reserve. When the catch is late, the day can stretch oddly. Morning chores at home may be finished, but paid work has not begun. You may use the time to mend, fetch something, visit a neighbour, or simply stay near the shed because leaving too far would be unwise. The harbour determines more than the clock. In this way, the herring gutter's day is disciplined, but not entirely predictable. You live between routine and arrival. You are steady, yet the sea keeps the right to change the hour. We feel that uncertainty gently, as a tide under the floorboards. When the catch is abundant, the opposite happens. The day compresses. There is no idle space. Boxes appear faster than benches clear. Salt must be ready. Barrels must be near. People call for help without raising panic. Your hands move until they feel almost separate from your thoughts. The room grows loud with usefulness, not shouting, but a dense layering of work sounds. Even then, a kind of calm can remain, because everyone knows abundance is why the job exists. Herring comes in waves, and when it comes, you answer with every practiced motion. The seasons shape the mood as well. In the darker months, the day may begin and end under lamps, with only a pale middle between. In brighter months, northern light can linger late, making evening feel unwilling to close. Icelandic summer has a strange softness to someone used to true dark, while winter gathers people nearer to heat and indoor talk. Through both, the herring work remains tied to cold water and perishable fish. You may measure the year less by calendar pages than by weather, catch, clothing, and the changing color of light on wet wood. You might know songs from the herring girls of the north, or fragments of them, or stories carried back by women who traveled for seasonal work. Songs help with rhythm, so do jokes, nicknames, and shared sayings. A workplace develops its own little language, understandable to those inside it and half hidden from others. You may call a difficult barrel by a name, or know which knife belongs to which hand by sight alone. Such details rarely enter official history, yet they make a working day livable. They are the warm human stitches in industrial cloth. The men at the harbour have their own tasks, and you see them at the edges of yours. They unload, lift, haul, repair, steer, tally, and sometimes stand with hands deep in pockets against the wind. Their work is different, but connected. A badly handled catch makes your day harder. A delayed barrel makes someone else's work harder. The harbour is a system of mutual dependence. though people may not describe it so formally. You know it in the practical way. If the crates arrive well, the bench flows. If the salt is close, the packing flows. If everyone does their part, the day moves. There can be tenderness in a workplace without sentimentality. Someone shares a little food. Someone notices a cut and passes a cloth. Someone makes room at the bench for a tired hip. Someone remembers that your child was ill and asks quietly after them. These gestures are small because the work leaves no room for large ones. But small gestures can travel far inside a difficult day. We notice them with care. They are not decoration. They are part of how people endure repeated labor and remain human within it, one quiet kindness at a time. The shed may have its irritations too, though we keep them soft in the telling. A person who leaves tools in the wrong place, a floor that never drains properly, a barrel hoop that catches on skirts, a draft that finds the same ankle all morning. Workplaces are built of such little grievances, and workers learn to step around them until they become part of the map. You may complain mildly, and someone may answer with a laugh, because complaint can be a way of sharing rather than refusing the day. Then the knife moves again, and the complaint dissolves into work. The sound of sharpening returns again and again. A blade drawn against stone or steel makes a narrow, purposeful note. It is a pause that prepares motion. You hold the knife carefully, feel the angle, listen for the right rasp, and test the edge in a way learned by habit. A sharp knife is safer, cleaner, and kinder to the hand. The small act of sharpening may feel restful because it is focused and brief. It gives the wrist a different movement. It gives the mind a single line to follow. Then the blade returns to the herring with renewed ease. If you look at the older benches, you see years of work written into them. Cuts, stains, worn corners, places polished by sleeves and palms. The wood has absorbed water, salt, pressure, and the leaning weight of many bodies. It may have been scrubbed countless times and still never look new. Newness is not its virtue. Use is. The same is true of much in a harbour town. Ropes fray, boats scar, boots crease, barrels darken, hands roughen, and all of it speaks of usefulness. You place your palms on that worn surface and become part of its memory. The day asks you to be present, but not intensely present in the way of alarm. It asks for a calm, steady attention, the kind that can coexist with conversation, weather thoughts, and the mild inward wandering that repetitive labor allows. This is why the work can be tiring and soothing at the same time. It takes from the body while giving the mind a narrow path. You do not need to solve the world at the bench. You need to hold the fish, guide the knife, rinse, place, and begin again. The simplicity has depth. As another afternoon turns, and the harbour light lowers across Reykjavik, the repeated day begins to feel less like a single line and more like a woven cloth of many small returns. You return to the bench. You return to the cup. You return to the doorway for air. You return to the knife edge, the salt pile, the barrel mouth, the wet cloth, the quiet exchange of glances with someone who knows exactly how tired you are. Nothing in the herring gutter's day happens only once. Even washing at night repeats the morning's contact with water, but with a different meaning. Morning water wakes and chills. Evening water cleans and releases. We follow those returns gently, because repetition is where this work keeps its soul. There is a certain color to herring that stays with you. Silver, yes, but also blue, green, gray and white, changing with light and wetness. In a heap, the fish look almost like weather made solid. In your hand, each one becomes particular for a moment, then joins the many again. This movement between one and many is part of the day's quiet spell. One fish receives your attention, then another, then another. The catch is huge, only if you look at all of it at once. So you do not. You stay with the one your fingers hold. The salt has a color too, though people often call it simply white. In the shed, it can look gray with damp, bright where freshly poured, dull where fish oil has touched it, or almost sparkling under lamplight. It gathers in ridges and pockets. It sticks to the edge of the barrel, It dries on your sleeves like pale dust. Without salt, the herring would not keep. With salt, time changes its behavior. The fish can travel farther, last longer, feed later. You are working with fish, but also with time, helping one day reach into another through preservation. Preservation is a quiet word for a powerful act. It does not rush. It does not flare. It works by drawing moisture, slowing decay, and giving people a way to store the sea's brief abundance for leaner days. In Iceland, where weather and distance have always mattered, such methods are not minor details. They are survival-shaped into craft. You may not think about chemistry at the bench, but you know the result. Proper salt, proper packing, proper timing. The barrel becomes a small season held in wood. Your hands have helped put it there. Sometimes, when a barrel is filled and closed, it gives a final wooden sound that feels satisfying. A lid set right, a hoop tightened, a weight shifted into place. It is a plain sound, but it marks completion. You may glance up from your bench when you hear it, especially near day's end. Another barrel ready, another portion of the catch made orderly. There is comfort in visible progress. The untouched boxes may seem endless, but the filled barrels stand as proof against discouragement. Work has passed through the room and taken shape. You can see that. In the household later, visible progress is harder to keep. A meal is eaten and gone. Dishes are dirtied again. Socks wear out again. Ash gathers again. Children need tending again. Perhaps that is why a row of finished barrels can feel especially solid. They remain standing after the hands leave them. They show the day's labor in a way that domestic work often does not. You may not say this aloud, but your body may understand it. The shed's products can be counted, marked, shipped. At home, care is repeated so quietly it can seem to vanish. Both kinds of work sustain life, and many herring gutters know both in the same day. That is why your hours are full, not frantic in our telling, not sharpened into complaint, but full. The paid work of fish and the unpaid work of home overlap in the same muscles. The hands that clean herring also wash cups, braid hair, mend cloth, lift kettles, carry fuel, and close windows against weather. When we speak to you as the worker, we keep all of this with you. You are not only a figure at a bench, you are a whole person moving through a whole day. The evening may bring a quieter kind of counting. How much money has been earned? How much bread remains? How much coal is left? How early you must rise? How many clean stockings are dry? These are domestic ledgers, often kept in the mind rather than on paper. They require memory, foresight, and patience. A herring gutter's practical intelligence does not stop with the knife. It stretches across household time, making small decisions before they become large problems. Such intelligence is rarely praised in grand words, but it keeps rooms warm and children fed, which is no small thing. If rain taps the window while you mend, you may think of the shed roof and whether it will drip tomorrow. You may think of the harbor ropes growing heavy. You may think of the boats moving in dark water. Weather links every place you occupy. It is on the fish, in the streets, against the house, inside the drying wool, and under the door. In Reykjavik, weather is not a background. It is a companion with moods. You do not fight it every moment. You learn its habits, respect its persistence, and make room for it beside your plans. There may be letters from relatives, or news carried by visitors, and these can change the color of an evening. A cousin working in the north, a brother on a trawler, a friend who took work in a laundry, a shop, a canteen, or a military office. The 1940s bring choices and disruptions, and young women especially may find paths their mothers did not expect. Herring work can be temporary for some, seasonal for others, necessary for many. Whether brief or long, it leaves knowledge in the hands. Once learned, the rhythm is hard to forget. The social life around such work can be modest but meaningful. Walking together after a shift, sharing coffee, borrowing a scarf, hearing where wages are better, learning which employer is fair, which bench is coldest, which forewoman is strict but just. Information travels through ordinary talk. Workplaces create networks, especially for women whose labor is often undervalued by people outside the room. You know who can be trusted to watch a child for an hour. You know who has a spare needle, who heard of a job, who can make you laugh when the day is long. At times, music may enter the day, not as performance, but as memory. A tune hummed under breath, a line from a popular song, a hymn remembered from childhood, a dance melody someone heard in town. Music helps time pass without breaking the work's calm. It gives the hands a companion rhythm. The room may not sing together often, but even one quiet voice can soften the air. You may not join aloud. You may only let the tune settle behind your movements, where it keeps company with the scrape of knives and the hush of salt. In sleep, sounds from the shed may return changed and gentle. The tubs become waves. The knife scrape becomes rain. The barrel knock becomes a door closing far away. The mind rearranges the day's labor into dreamlike pieces, less sharp than the original, almost weightless. Perhaps you dream of silver fish moving without needing to be caught, or of a bench that cleans itself under warm water, or of walking through Reykjavik with dry shoes and no wind. Dreams do not need to be sensible. They only need to carry the body deeper into rest. Morning will come with its own demands, but not yet. For now, the late evening stretches quietly, and the household lowers its voice. The lamp may be turned down, the stove gives out less heat, a cup is set aside, a child turns in sleep. Outside, the harbor continues without needing your attention. Boats pull against ropes. Water moves under darkness. The herring in their barrels begin their slow salted change, no longer asking for your hands. That is one mercy of preservation. Once the work is done properly, it continues without you, silently, in the dark. And when another day asks you back, it does so through familiar signs. The damp coat, the harbor smell, the bench waiting, and the quiet knowledge that your hands can begin again. You answer because the morning has already arranged itself around the harbor, and because the Reykjavik herring shed knows your shape almost before you step inside. The door is cool beneath your hand, the latch damp from mist, and the air within holds yesterday's salt under today's fresh chill. We enter softly with you, not as visitors to a strange place now, but as companions returning to a room whose sounds have begun to feel familiar. The benches wait in rows, the barrels wait upright, the knives wait with a small plain patience that belongs only to tools. The earliest workers speak in low voices as if the day might bruise if handled too roughly. Someone has brought news from the quay, a boat delayed by weather, another already unloading, and the talk settles around the tables while scarves are tied and aprons fastened. Your fingers test the knot at your waist, then smooth the apron down, though it will soon be wet again. Outside, Reykjavik is pale and damp, with roofs soft under cloud and harbor lamps fading into daylight. Inside, the herring gutter's day begins with small preparations, each one as steady as breathing. You check your knife before the first fish reaches you. The blade is clean, but the edge needs a little waking, so you draw it carefully against the steel and listen for the fine rasp that tells you the angle is right. That sound is thin and private in the room, though several others are making it too. A knife can be sharpened in haste, but it rewards patience. You know that now. A tired hand wants a keen edge, and a clean cut is kinder to the fish, the worker, and the barrel that will receive the day's labor. The first crates arrive with a scrape and a thud, and cold comes with them. Tucked among the herring like a second cargo, their skins hold the morning light in dull silver bands, and when the top layer shifts, you smell the sea more sharply. It is not the wide open sea of postcards or songs, it is the working sea, close and oily, mixed with wet wood, rope, diesel, salt and gull feathers. You lift the first herring, feel its weight settle across your palm, and let the body remember what sleep had only folded away for the night. A new day at the bench is never entirely new, but it still has a small beginning inside it. The first cut teaches your fingers the temperature. The first rinse teaches your skin the water. The first filled tub tells your back how far it must bend. We stay with these beginnings because they are the way a worker measures the world. Not in speeches, not in large announcements, but through the pressure of wood under the wrist, the sound of scales sliding, the little sting where salt finds an old nick and reminds you of yesterday's place. There is a steadiness in the line of women beside you. Some are young enough to bring quick laughter into the shed. Some are older, with faces made calm by weather and necessity. A few may have come from other parts of Iceland for work, or from households where fish has always been the family trade. Their bodies carry different stories, but the table brings them into one rhythm. You hear the small differences in how each woman works. One quick and light, one exact and firm, one pausing often to wipe the blade, another moving with almost unbroken flow. In 1940s Reykjavik, these differences matter more than any outsider might see. The work is not simply a mass of identical motions. It is a room full of individual habits, braided together until the shed can handle the catch. One person keeps her tubs unusually tidy. Another can pack a barrel with a neatness that draws quiet approval. Another remembers whose hands crack badly in cold weather and passes over a cloth without comment. You begin to understand that a workplace has its own weather too, made of temper, skill, fatigue, humor, and the small courtesies that keep a day warm. The forewoman moves through that weather with practiced attention. She notices the flow of fish, the supply of salt, the state of the barrels, and the mood of the room. She may speak your name if something needs correcting, but her voice does not have to be sharp. It carries because it is useful. In a shed like this, authority is built from knowledge that has survived many mornings. She knows how quickly the herring must be handled. She knows when hands are growing careless from cold. She knows the difference between a complaint and a true problem. Your own attention moves in smaller circles. The herring in your hand, the clean place on the bench, the tub to your side, the knife edge, the motion of your neighbor's elbow. You make room for all of it without thinking too hard. A worker learns the size of their own immediate world, and that world can be surprisingly rich. The table surface is not just wood. It is cold near the edge, warmer where your sleeve has rested, slippery where scales gather, rough where old knife cuts cross beneath your palm. It has become a kind of map. The morning grows, and Reykjavik grows louder beyond the walls. You hear a lorry starting with a cough of engine and a faint smell of fuel drifting under the door. You hear men calling by the key, gulls lifting and settling, a rope snapped against a mast by wind. These sounds do not interrupt you. They are the larger accompaniment to the herring gutter's work, the harbor's low orchestra of necessity. We listen with you while your hands continue. The fish opens, the blade rinses, the cleaned body moves onward, and the next fish waits without impatience. Sometimes your mind follows the herring beyond the shed, imagining the markets, kitchens, and storerooms it may reach. Salted fish travels in ways the worker often does not. It may leave Reykjavik by ship or stay closer to home, feeding households through weather and shortage. You may picture a barrel opened months later, the wood dark and damp, the smell rising strong from the preserved layers. Someone else's hands will lift what your hands prepared. That is enough connection for a quiet thought. And then the bench calls you back with the cold gleam of another fish. The room warms from bodies more than from any stove. Steam may rise from coffee cups near a wall. Breath no longer shows, except perhaps by the door. Your shoulders have found their working level, and the first stiffness has eased into motion. The cold has not gone, it has only become ordinary. This is how many hardships are carried in old work. They do not vanish, but they become woven into the routine until the worker can move through them. You know the floor is wet. You know your fingers ache, you know the task, and knowing makes a kind of shelter. A woman near you begins talking about bread, not in a grand way, only whether there will be enough flour, whether a neighbor's baking came out too heavy, whether a child will eat the crust if it is toasted. Such talk might seem far from the herring, yet it belongs perfectly here. Food workers often talk of food, because the distance between labor and hunger is never very large. You handle fish that will become someone else's meal while planning the meal waiting in your own kitchen. Work and appetite circle one another, quiet and practical, through the day. Another worker answers with a story about coffee, about how a cousin once tried to stretch a poor supply too far and made something barely darker than warm water. The room gives a small ripple of amusement, gentle enough not to disturb the rhythm. Laughter in the shed is rarely a performance. It is a release valve, a brief warmth, a way to remind the body that it is not only a pair of hands. You smile, perhaps without looking up. Your knife keeps moving, the herring keeps coming. The morning accepts the laughter and folds it into work. By mid-morning, you begin to feel which part of the day this will be. Some days are smooth, with the fish steady, the salt close, and the barrels ready at the right time. Some days have little snags, a missing tub, a dull batch of knives, a crowded doorway, a delay that makes everyone wait and then rush. This day may have its own mixture. A tub is moved, a barrel leaks slightly and must be checked. Someone needs a cloth. Nothing is alarming. It is simply the ordinary friction of labor, handled by people who have done this before and will do it again. The herring scales cling everywhere. They touch the back of your hand, your apron front, the bench, even the edge of a coffee cup if someone sets it too near the work. Under the light, they are beautiful in a way that no one in the room has time to admire for long. They catch blue and green, then dull to grey as they dry. A scale may travel home hidden in a cuff, appearing later like a tiny bright reminder of the harbour. We notice it now because sleepy attention can dwell where busy eyes pass over. Beauty here is small and stubborn. The work also has smells within smells. Fresh herring smells, clean and cold at first, almost like deep water made tangible. Opened fish smells stronger, richer, with oil rising to the surface. Salt smells dry until dampness wakes it. Barrels smell of wood that has held wet things before. Wet wool smells of human warmth meeting cold air. Coffee cuts through everything, dark and bitter and kind. Your day is layered through the nose as much as through the hands, and after long enough, those layers become the scent of a whole working life. When a brief pause comes, perhaps because the next crate is being moved or a barrel must be shifted, you flex your fingers and look toward the window. Reykjavik's light sits low and grey outside, soft on the roofs and hard on the water. The mountains across the bay may be hidden by cloud, or they may appear faintly, like a thought not fully spoken. You do not gaze for long. The room calls you back, but even a few seconds of distance can loosen the neck and clear the eyes, and the harbour scene settles inside you like a slow breath. The next crate is heavier than it looks, and two people move it together. There is a small art in lifting with another person, listening with the body, matching the moment so the weight does not lurch. You take your side, feel the rough wood against your fingers, and help slide it nearer the bench. The crate leaves a wet track behind. When it is set down, the fish inside shift with a soft, dense sound. Then everyone returns to their places. The room rearranges itself without ceremony, and the herring gutter's work continues in its patient circle. You might have a favorite place at the bench, even if you would not call it favorite aloud. Perhaps it is far enough from the door to avoid the worst draft, but close enough to hear the harbour. Perhaps the light falls better there. Perhaps your neighbour is someone whose company makes the hours pass gently. Workplaces often create such preferences, tiny claims made by habit rather than ownership. If someone stands in your place one morning, you can still work elsewhere, of course, but the body notices. It misses the familiar angle, the known board, the particular view. There are also small superstitions in working rooms, though people may smile at them. A knife that never feels right. A barrel that always seems troublesome. A day that begins with spilled salt and sets everyone murmuring. Iceland has old stories in its soil and sea, but the shed's superstitions are more practical than mystical. They come from memory. Something went wrong once, and the place where it happened keeps a little shadow. You are not frightened by such things. You simply step around them, as workers everywhere step around what experience has taught them to notice. As the morning opens toward noon, the smell of food begins to matter more. It may not be present yet, but the body imagines it. Bread wrapped in cloth, coffee warming in a pot, a potato carried from home. The thought of lunch makes the remaining work before the pause feel both longer and easier. Longer because you are aware of hunger, easier because there is a mark ahead. We move toward that mark. With you slowly. The knife rises and falls. The tub fills. A barrel receives another layer of fish and salt, and the day draws closer to rest. Before stopping, there is often a push to finish what is already open. Fish cannot be left carelessly in the middle of a step. A bench should not be abandoned in disorder. You work through the last handful of herring before the pause, perhaps faster now, perhaps with a little more silence. The room senses the change. Voices lower as people close small tasks. A tub is emptied. A cloth is rinsed. A knife is laid safely aside. Only then does the pause truly arrive, not as a bell, but as a collective loosening of shoulders and hands. Midday in the Reykjavik herring shed feels like stepping from one kind of time into another. The work time is measured in fish, cuts, tubs, and barrels. The pause is measured in sips, bites, warmth, and the brief permission to let your back be your own. You may sit if there is a place, or lean against a wall where the boards are cool through your coat. Coffee steam rises near your face. Bread feels dry at first, then softens as you eat. The room does not become clean exactly, but it becomes gentler for a little while. Someone opens the door, and fresh harbor air crosses the room. It carries cold, tar, wet rope, and distant coal smoke. The air touches the coffee steam and thins the fish smell without removing it. You breathe more deeply than you meant to. Outside, Reykjavik moves under a low sky. The town's plain houses and working buildings held together by roads still modest, by footsteps, by carts and vehicles, by errands repeated through weather. You are not apart from the town while you rest. You are one of the reasons it moves, one worker among many, taking a small pause. Lunch talk may drift toward wages, because a working pause often makes room for the future. Someone wonders when pay will come. Someone has heard of better money in another place. Someone says the work is hard but steady, and steady work has its own value. You listen while holding your cup, feeling warmth seep into the fingers that have been cold all morning. The talk is practical, but beneath it lies hope. Hope for rent covered, shoes repaired, a little cloth bought, a child fed well, a debt made smaller, a winter made less narrow. Then the talk may turn to weather, as it often does in Iceland, because weather is never a small subject near the sea. A storm beyond the bay, a wind expected by evening, a hard frost remembered from childhood. Someone says the damp gets into the bones faster than cold alone, and several heads nod. You know the truth of it. Dampness works slowly, with patience. It enters sleeves, hems, bedding, walls, and moods. Coffee answers it only briefly, but briefly is enough for now. You cup both hands around the warmth and let it do its work. There may be a younger worker who talks about going out in the evening if the day does not run long. A dance perhaps, or a meeting with friends, or simply walking where the town lights make the wet streets shine. The older women may smile, remembering or pretending not to. Reykjavik in the 1940s holds more movement than it once did, with new people, new money, new music, and a sense that the world has come too close and somehow made the town larger. Yet the afternoon still waits. The knife still waits. Youth and tiredness must share the same body. When the pause thins, you know before anyone says it. People begin wrapping food, draining cups, standing, retying aprons, touching scarves, checking knives. The shed regathers itself. The harbor air is shut out or reduced to a draft. Your hands, warmer now, return to cold fish, and the contrast is almost startling. The first few cuts after lunch are slower, not from ignorance, but from the body's reluctance to return so quickly. Then the old rhythm comes back, faithful as a tide, herring in the palm, knife along the line, waist away, fish forward, and again. Afternoon asks for a different kind of attention. Morning had freshness. Midday had pause. Afternoon has the long middle of endurance, where the day is no longer new and not yet close to done. You protect your strength by narrowing your view. The whole catch is too much to think about. The whole week is far too much. So you think of this crate, this barrel, this next clean motion. We keep close with you, because closeness is restful. The table, the fish, the salt, the hand. The world becomes manageable when held in portions small enough to touch. A worker beside you may grow quiet in the afternoon, and you understand without asking. Fatigue changes everyone differently. Some talk more to fight it, some talk less to save themselves. Some become brisk, some dreamy, some irritable around the edges, though still careful. You learn these patterns because working near others teaches a social knowledge that no book records. You know when to offer a word and when to leave silence alone. You know when a joke will help and when it will land badly. This, too, is part of the herring gutter's skill. The floor is slick now, and you step with care. Wet boards can teach the feet to become thoughtful. You know where the water gathers, where salt gives a little grip, where a tub might be in the way if you turn too quickly. Your body holds a map of hazards and helps. It knows the doorway draft, the bench corner, the barrel row, the place where someone always leaves a cloth. This knowledge is not dramatic. It is deeply useful. It lets the mind remain calm while the body negotiates the room, step by step, through damp light. At some point, perhaps in mid-afternoon, a small cut opens on your finger. It is not new, exactly, but a place worn thin by cold and salt. You feel the sting before you see it. A cloth is found, or a strip is wrapped, and you continue if it is minor, because workers often continue through small discomforts. We do not make hardship grand here. We only notice how the day is carried. The salt will sting again. The water will sting too. Your hand will adjust its grip, and the task will fold the discomfort into its rhythm. The herring continues to shine, even as the day dulls. This may be one of the quietest surprises of the work, that beauty does not stop appearing just because the hands are tired. A fish lifted from the crate can catch a sudden thread of light and gleam blue along the back. A barrel of salt can look like snow under the lamp. A wet rope outside can hold beads of water like glass. You may not pause to admire these things, but your eyes receive them. The working world gives small gifts without asking whether anyone has time to thank it. In the 1940s, some of the equipment around you may seem old while other parts of the harbour change quickly. Motor engines, military supplies, new roads, and imported goods alter the town's sound and pace. Yet the handwork of gutting herring remains close to older patterns. Fish still spoil if neglected. Salt still preserves if used well. A knife still depends on the steadiness of the person holding it. This mixture of old and new is part of Reykjavik's wartime texture. You stand inside change, doing a task that feels older than the decade around you. A visitor might notice the smell first and think it overwhelming. You notice whether it has changed. Is the fish fresh? Is the barrel right? Is there too much waste left too near the bench? Workers read smell with practical care. A sour edge would matter. A clean, cold smell matters too. The nose becomes another tool, not separate from the knife or hand. We let that be part of the atmosphere, because real work is full of such quiet sensing. You are always reading the room, through skin, ear, eye, and breath. Another barrel is filled, and you help shift it slightly, feeling its weight resist. Full barrels have a seriousness to them. They are no longer hollow promises but dense objects made from sea, salt, wood, and labor. When moved, they scrape the floor with a deep sound that travels up through your shoes. Someone marks it or checks it, and it joins the others. There is satisfaction in seeing the row grow. Each barrel says the day is becoming something outside your tiredness. It says the work has taken shape and will leave the shed in order. The afternoon light lowers further. If the sky is cloudy, the change is subtle, only a thickening of grey at the window. If there is a break in the clouds, a pale strip of brightness may cross the room and touch the barrels, turning their wet hoops briefly gold. You see it, perhaps only from the corner of your eye. The room is still plain, still damp, still full of fish, yet for that moment, The ordinary objects hold a softness that seems almost tender. Then the light shifts, and you return to the next herring in your hand. There is comfort in returning. That may be the deepest truth of this work. The day returns to the task. The hand returns to the motion. The mind returns to the sound. Even after a pause, a thought, a cut finger, a laugh, or a glance toward the harbor, the work receives you again. It does not ask you to reinvent yourself. It asks you to continue. For sleep, there is something gentle in that idea. The world at the bench is made of returns, and each return is small enough to be carried without strain. As the shift moves toward its later hours, the shed begins to gather the feeling of evening before evening has fully arrived. People speak of what remains. Someone counts boxes. Someone checks whether more fish are expected. Someone says the weather is closing in. These words pass from person to person, not as alarm but as orientation. A worker likes to know the shape of the remaining day. You look at the crates still waiting and measure them against your body's strength. It seems possible. It seems long. Both can be true in the same breath. The last hours are often where skill protects gentleness. If you are tired, a poor method becomes punishing. A good method becomes a mercy. You stand with the weight balanced. You keep the fish near. You wipe the bench before mess makes the motion awkward. You sharpen before the blade drags. You let your neighbor have room to move. These are practical kindnesses, offered to yourself and others through arrangement rather than words. Work can be made harder by carelessness, or slightly easier by attention. In a long day, slightly easier can feel like grace. The harbor outside has begun to smell more strongly of evening smoke. Houses and workshops draw themselves inward. More lamps appear. The damp air holds each smell low, so coal, fish, tar, and cooking drift together along the quay. You catch a little of it when the door opens, and for a moment you can almost taste the town. Reykjavik is not separate from its harbor. The harbor enters coats, walls, accounts, meals, and sleep. It enters your clothing and follows you home, where someone may know where you have been before you speak a word. A young worker near the end of the bench asks an older one how many seasons she has done this. The answer may come with a shrug, because years of labor are not always counted cleanly. Too many to remember, since before the girl was born, since a certain winter, since a certain employer. Work history is often tied to events rather than calendars. You listen while keeping your blade moving, and you feel the long line of hands behind this room. Not ancient in a museum way, but living, practical, passed down in gestures, corrections, warnings, and jokes. The older worker may speak of the north, of herring towns where the season could turn a place bright and crowded almost overnight. She may remember long days under summer light, barrels everywhere, money earned quickly and spent carefully, songs, aches, and the smell of salt thick as weather. Reykjavik is different, but the fish are kin, and so are the hands. Her story does not pull you from your own bench, it deepens it. You understand that your day belongs to a wider map of Icelandic women's labor, drawn along coasts, through seasons, and across many tables. As she talks, you imagine other sheds, other harbors, other women standing in cold air with knives in hand. Siglufjörður, perhaps, or other northern places where herring work left deep marks on memory. But the imagining remains soft. We are still in Reykjavik with you. The boards under your shoes are these boards. The window holds this light. The forewoman's voice is this voice. The fish in your hand is not an idea of fish, but one slick, cold body needing one clear motion before the day can move forward another inch. The story fades, as stories do when work asks for breath. Silence returns for a while. It is not empty silence. It is full of small sounds. Cloth against wood. Water in a pail. A knife set down. A lid fitted. A cough. A shoe scraping salt from the floor. The room feels tired now, but not broken. Tiredness can have different colors. This one is gray-blue, like the fish, like the harbor, like the evening pressing softly at the window. You breathe through it. You lift another herring. You follow the motion. Near the end of the cutting, the body begins to anticipate release too early, which can make the remaining work feel stubborn. You learn not to count too much. Counting can help, but it can also stretch the minutes. Better to let the hands continue and allow the end to arrive when it arrives. Still, you notice the pile diminishing. You notice the last crate standing open. You notice someone cleaning a barrel that will not be needed after all. These signs loosen something in the room. The day is not done, but the shape of done has appeared nearby. When the final crate is brought to the bench, it has a different presence. Everyone knows it, even if no one names it. You take from it steadily, refusing to rush the last fish into poor work. There is a quiet discipline in ending well. The herring are no less cold, no less slick, no less deserving of clean handling because the workers are tired. The knife must still be guided. The barrel must still be right. The bench must still be kept clear enough for the final motions. This is how pride behaves at the end, quietly and firmly. After the last herring from that crate has been cleaned, there is a moment of strange lightness. The hands hover, ready for what they have been doing all day, and then there is no next fish in front of them. The absence feels almost like a sound. Someone exhales. Someone says a simple word about being done with that part. But the room does not empty yet. Now comes the cleaning, the sorting, the checking, the return of tools, the washing of surfaces, the practical ending that allows tomorrow to begin without yesterday's disorder waiting in the corners. Water is poured, and the benches darken. Scales slide under cloth. Salt dissolves in little cloudy streams. The smell rises again, stronger for a moment, as if the day's work is saying its name before letting go. You wipe the table in long, firm strokes, moving from one end to the other, feeling old knife marks through the cloth. The wood will never be new. It should not be new. It only needs to be clean enough, ready enough, honest enough for the next shift of hands. You rinse the cloth and begin again. The floor takes longer. Wet boards hold traces of everything that has happened. Fish oil makes some places slick. Salt roughens others. A scale catches in a crack. A bit of twine appears where no one noticed it before. You push water toward the drain or doorway, depending on how the shed is made, and watch it carry the day in pale streaks. This cleaning is less skilled than cutting perhaps, but no less necessary. Workplaces depend on these humble endings. Without them, the next beginning would feel heavier before it even started. Knives are gathered or placed away. Each blade is wiped until it no longer holds fish or salt. You may check yours twice, not from fussiness, but from habit. A good tool deserves to be left ready. The handle is damp and you dry it as well as you can, then place it where it belongs. Your hand feels bare without it. After hours of holding the knife, empty fingers seem unsure of themselves. They flex, close, open again. They are already beginning to understand rest, but slowly, because the body does not leave work all at once. The barrels stand in their finished rows, heavy and quiet. Some may be moved soon. Some may remain until transport is arranged. Their sides are damp, their hoops dark, their markings plain. You look at them and feel, not excitement, but recognition. Here is the day, made visible. Here is the day, made visible. It is heavier than it was in the morning, carrying water and the smell of herring. You hang it where it can dry, though drying in Reykjavik weather is often a slow negotiation, rather than a certainty. Your sleeves fall back into place. Your scarf loosens. Hair escapes and feels cool against your neck. These small changes are the body being returned to itself, piece by piece, after a day of service. When you step outside, the evening air seems both colder and cleaner than anything inside the shed. It enters the lungs with a sharpness that wakes you for the walk home. The harbour is dim now, but not asleep. Workers still move near warehouses. A boat light nods on dark water. Gulls have quieted somewhat, though one or two still call with ragged persistence. The ground is damp. Your shoes remember every hour of standing. We walk with you slowly, matching the tired pace that comes after useful labor, when the body wants home but refuses to be hurried. Reykjavik streets hold the late day in muted colors. Grey walls, dark windows, pale smoke, wet stones, brown wool coats, the yellowing glow of lamps. You pass people whose work you may know by sight, if not by name. A man smelling of rope and engine, a woman with a basket covered against the weather, a child sent on an errand, walking quickly with hands tucked close. The town is a shared arrangement of tasks, each person carrying something. You carry the smell of herring, the ache of standing, and the quiet satisfaction of having stayed with the day. Perhaps you walk with another worker for part of the way. The conversation is softer now than at midday, because tired people often speak more honestly or not at all. You may compare hands, laugh over salt-stung cuts, mention the forewoman's warning about an early start, or fall into companionable silence. The sound of 2 pairs of shoes on damp ground can be enough company. A worker friendship does not always need confession. Sometimes it is made from walking the same road after the same labor, under the same low sky, with the same smell in your clothes. If you part at a corner, the evening briefly feels wider. Your street draws you on. A lamp in a window may be yours, or it may be someone else's. But either way, it offers the old comfort of light held against weather. You may think of the basin, the stove, the chair, the food to prepare or reheat. Home is not simply rest, but its duties are shaped differently. The air there will be warmer. The floor will not be slick with fish. The voices will belong to people who know you beyond the apron and knife. At the door you pause to shake damp from your coat or scrape your shoes. These small threshold rituals matter in a wet town. You do not want to carry the whole harbour across the floor, though some of it always comes with you. Inside, the change in air is immediate, warmer, closer, holding the smell of food, wool, soap and human rooms. The sound changes too. Instead of gulls and crates, there may be a pot lid, a chair leg, a child, a cough, a radio turned low, or the simple hush of a room waiting for evening. You wash as well as the household allows. Warm water if there is enough. Soap rubbed into fingers, around nails, over wrists. The water clouds quickly. Fish oil resists. Salt loosens. A tiny cut stings again, and you study it with mild annoyance, then return to scrubbing. The basin catches the day in miniature grey water, loosened scales. The faint smell of the shed rising one last time. You dry your hands on a rough towel. They feel tender, almost too clean, as if the skin has been asked to forget too much at once. Supper may be waiting, or it may need your hands before it appears. Either way, the kitchen work has a gentler scale after the shed, though it is still work. A knife may return to your hand, but now it cuts bread, potatoes, onions, or fish for your own table. The motion is slower, the light is warmer, the smells are rounder, less sharp than the harbour's. Steam clouds the window. A spoon taps the side of a pot. You listen to the room settling around food, and the body begins to believe the working day may truly soften. At the table, if you sit, your legs speak quietly. They throb, loosen, and grow heavy. Your back may complain once you are still, because stillness gives it permission. You hold a cup and let the warmth soak into your palms. Perhaps someone asks whether the catch was large, and you answer with a few plain words. There were many today. The barrels filled well. The shed was cold near the door. Such answers are enough. Not every day needs to be turned into a story. Some days ask only to be eaten beside, warmed beside, and laid down gently. The radio may bring news if it is on, but the voices from far away can seem both near and unreal after a day of fish. Reports of battles, ships, politics, leaders, and places beyond the sea enter the room through a small box, while your hands smell faintly of herring despite washing. The contrast is strange, but the decade has made it ordinary. You listen, or half listen. The world is large and unsettled. Your own day was small and exact. Both are true. And tonight, the small exact things may be easier for the tired mind to hold. After supper, there may be washing up. Plates, cups, spoons, a pot with food stuck at the bottom, warm water again, cloth again. The hands continue, but the pace is different, and the stakes are household stakes. A dish slipping would be a nuisance, not a lost barrel of fish. Still, you do the work with care. Care becomes a habit that moves from place to place. You wipe the table. You set things to dry. You look around the room and see the evening taking shape through modest order, the kind that helps sleep come without too much trouble. Mending may wait by the lamp. A sock, an apron tie, a seam at the shoulder, a child's garment worn thin at the elbow. The needle feels small after the fish knife, almost delicate, but your hands can adjust. They have adjusted all day. Thread passes through cloth in small repeated pulls. The lamp gives a yellow circle. Outside the window, the dark gathers over Reykjavik, and the harbour becomes a suggestion of sounds more than a visible place. You mend slowly, and the day's harsher smells fade behind wool, soap, supper, and the warm dust of home. A scale may still appear. It may cling to the cuff of your dress, or shine on the floor near your shoe. You pick it up or brush it away, and there is the whole day again, briefly held in one tiny oval of silver. Such small remnants are part of working life. Bakers carry flour. Coal workers carry black dust. Fish workers carry scales and smell. The body and clothing become records of labor. You do not need to sentimentalize it. You only see it, acknowledge it, and let the evening continue around that small bright trace. If someone in the room is already asleep, the household lowers itself around them. Voices soften. The chair is moved carefully. The kettle is set down with a slower hand. Sleep changes the behavior of everyone near it, inviting quiet even from those still awake. You know this from childhood and from motherhood, from crowded rooms and thin walls, from winters when warmth was shared because it had to be. Tonight, the sleep of another person helps call your own closer. Your eyelids grow heavier while the needle waits between stitches, held lightly in your fingers. Before bed, you may check what must be ready for morning. Clothes near at hand, apron if it must be taken back, food wrapped, a cup set where it can be found. These preparations are small bridges thrown across the night. They make the next day less abrupt. A worker learns to help her future self in quiet ways. You cannot remove the cold fish from tomorrow, or the wet boards, or the long standing, but you can know where your scarf is. You can leave the knife of the household clean. You can place your shoes where they may dry a little more. The bed receives you with a plain kindness. It may not be soft by modern standards, but after a day upright, it offers the great gift of not standing. Your feet release first, then calves, then thighs, then the back. Though the shoulders may hold tension a little longer, you breathe into the pillow and smell wool, soap, and the faint persistent trace of fish in your hair. It does not trouble you much. It is part of the day leaving slowly. We stay only at the edge now, where thought begins to loosen and images drift without order. The herring shed returns in fragments, the bench seen from above, a line of barrels, the forewoman's sleeve, coffee steam, a gull's cry flattened by wood, your own hand holding a silver fish in a pool of lamplight. These images float up and sink again. They no longer require action. You do not have to cut, rinse, pack, or count them. The mind is simply putting away what the body has already finished. Outside, Reykjavik's night presses gently at the window, and the harbour continues its dark breathing, unconcerned with your dreams. In the deepest part of the night, the barrels in the shed sit quietly without witnesses. Salt works while everyone sleeps. It draws, preserves, and settles. No voice is needed. No knife moves. The bench is dry as much as the damp air permits. A forgotten scale dulls on the floor. The knives rest in their places, and the whole room holds the afterimage of labor. This is one of the peaceful things about a finished task. When done well, it can continue in silence. You sleep, and part of your day's work keeps becoming itself in the darkness. Morning will find it changed a little, though no eye has watched the change. The salt will be wetter. The fish will be firmer in its new way. The room will smell different by a small degree. Workers who live close to processes learn that not all change is visible at once. Some of it happens in barrels, dough, cloth, drying rooms, cellars, and sleeping bodies. You know this even if you never phrase it. Rest is also a process. The tired hand recovers slowly. The sore back loosens. The mind clears under cover of night. And when you wake, perhaps before full daylight, the day begins again, not with words, but with the feel of the room and the knowledge of what must be done. You dress in practical layers, moving quietly if others sleep. A stove may need tending. Water may be splashed on the face. Hair is pinned or covered. Food is wrapped. The hands, less swollen now, open and close once as if testing themselves. They are not new hands, but they are ready enough. For working people, ready enough carries many mornings. It is a humble and reliable phrase. The street outside is damp again, because Reykjavik often seems to keep some moisture in reserve for every hour. You step into air that smells of cold stone, sea, smoke, and the faint sourness of wet earth. The sky has not fully lightened. Windows glow here and there, each one a small life beginning its own tasks. You walk toward the harbour with others or alone, shoes finding the known way. The town is quiet in the manner of places before work, not asleep, not awake, but suspended between bed and labour. The harbour appears gradually, first as smell, then as sound, then as shapes. Rope, mast, shed, boat, crate, light on water. The gulls know the morning before many people do, and their voices scrape across the air. You pass a man coiling rope, another bending over gear, someone moving with a bucket, someone smoking near a doorway. No one needs to explain why they are there. The harbour gathers its people because the sea has offered work, and work has answered by leaving warm beds before comfort would have chosen it. You are among them, steady and quiet. Inside the shed, the cold returns with a familiarity almost like greeting. It is not cruel in the telling, only present. You hang your coat or keep it close depending on the draft. You tie the apron. You check the bench. You touch the knife. Around you the other women settle into their places, and for a few minutes the room feels like an instrument being tuned. A cough, a knot tightened, a tub shifted, a blade sharpened, a low greeting. Then the first fish arrive, and the instrument begins to play its working music. Today, perhaps, the herring are especially bright. They lie in layers, their eyes clear, their bodies firm, their scales flashing whenever a crate is moved. Freshness gives satisfaction before the work has even started. A good catch handled well honors everyone in the chain: the fishermen, the carriers, the gutters, the salters, the packers. You take the first fish and feel that satisfaction through your fingers. The cut opens cleanly. The knife moves without drag. The cleaned herring passes onward. A good beginning does not make the day short, but it makes the first hour kind. We stay with you in that kindness, because not every detail of hard work is hard. There is pleasure in tools that behave, in fish that handle well, in salt that is dry enough, in a bench cleared properly by whoever worked there before you. There is pleasure in a cup of coffee at the right moment, in a joke that lands softly, in seeing a row of barrels fill at a fair pace. These pleasures are modest, but they are not imaginary. They belong to working life as surely as ache and damp do. They help the day hold. A woman beside you mentions that the weather may clear later, and the room receives the possibility without trusting it too much. Icelandic weather teaches cautious hope. Still, a clearer evening would be welcome. Clothes might dry better. The walk home might be easier. The harbour might shine under low light instead of disappearing into mist. You picture it briefly, then return to the fish. Work keeps the imagination from flying too far. It allows little trips, then draws the mind back by touch, smell, and the next necessary motion. The herring in your hand is real. The morning's rhythm becomes strong enough that time blurs around the edges. You may not know exactly how many fish have passed through your hands. You know only that the crate is lower, the tub fuller, and the body warmer from effort. This is the trance of repeated skilled work, not sleep, not daydreaming, but a steady middle state where attention and habit share the same path. For listeners drifting near sleep, this rhythm is gentle to imagine. There is no sudden turn, only motion returning to motion, sound returning to sound, breath returning to breath. Now and then, something small breaks the pattern without disturbing it. A fish slips and is caught. A barrel hoop needs tightening. Someone's scarf comes loose and is retied with wet fingers. A cup is moved out of danger. A worker at the far end sneezes, and several voices offer quick, soft responses. These tiny incidents are the beads on the string of the day. They keep the room human. They remind you that repetition is never perfect sameness, because people are alive inside it, adjusting, noticing, and continuing with care. The texture of the fish changes as it warms slightly in the room. It remains cold, but the surface loses the sharper chill it had when first unloaded. Your hand notices this. Your knife notices too. Work teaches degrees. Cold from the boat is different from cold in the shed. Wet from fresh water is different from wet from fish oil. Salt sting is different from knife sting. Tiredness before lunch is different from tiredness near evening. These distinctions are quiet and numerous. They make up the real education of a Reykjavik herring gutter's day. At the packing area, salt is being laid down with measured confidence. A layer of fish, a layer of salt, arranged so preservation can happen evenly. The pattern is simple, but simplicity does not excuse carelessness. A badly packed barrel can spoil, and spoilage wastes fish, labor, and trust. You watch for a moment as someone smooths salt with a practiced hand. The grains whisper against the fish. The barrel's interior darkens with moisture. It is a slow craft, and like many slow crafts, it asks the worker to believe in results that will ripen beyond the present. The day outside brightens a little. Through the window, the grey loosens, and a pale strip of sky appears between clouds. Someone notices and says a word about it. The room's mood lifts by a thread, not dramatically, not enough to change the work, but enough that shoulders seem less hunched for a while. Light can do that in northern places. It can enter a room quietly and make the same objects feel less severe. The knives still cut, the fish still smell, the floor is still wet, yet everything carries a faint sense of easing. You may think of the laundry at home when you see that light. A worker's thoughts often move along practical lines. Clear weather means drying. Drying means less damp cloth near the stove. Less damp cloth means a more comfortable evening. Such chains of thought are small, but they govern much of daily life. In a household without endless supplies, weather can decide whether socks are ready, whether bedding feels cold, whether a coat smells fresh or stale. So the pale sky at the shed window is not scenery only. It is domestic possibility, brightening the mind. Then another crate arrives, and the room bends back toward the bench. The new fish are heavier, perhaps from a different part of the catch, and you adjust again. This adjustment is so constant that you barely name it. Every crate asks the hand to learn it. Every hour asks the body to renegotiate strength. You are not a machine, though the work is repetitive. You are a person making small judgments over and over, and those judgments are what keep the process alive. The herring passes through your hands because your hands are paying attention. Near noon, the smell of coffee begins before the pause is allowed. Someone has poured or prepared it, and the scent travels through the shed like a promise. Dark, bitter, warm, familiar. Coffee's smell seems almost miraculous against fish and salt. It does not erase them. It stands beside them, reminding everyone that the body will be warm soon. You keep working, but the thought of the cup changes the last minutes. The knife moves with the same care, while the mind leans gently towards steamed bread and the chance to rest the back. The pause comes as it usually does, by shared understanding more than ceremony. You clear your place, rinse what must not sit, and set the knife aside safely. The cup feels wonderful when it reaches your hands. It is too hot at first, and that too is welcome. You breathe over it, letting steam touch the face. Around you, others stand or sit, eating, talking, rubbing fingers, looking toward the window. The shed becomes almost domestic for a little while, though barrels still stand nearby and the floor still smells of the morning's catch. A piece of bread tastes different in a working pause than it does at home. It is simpler perhaps, but more needed. You eat slowly enough to feel the crumb, the butter if there is butter, the dryness softened by coffee. Someone shares a small thing, a bit of news, a bit of food, a remark about the sky. These exchanges stitch the room together. In a world where much labor is paid by what can be counted, the uncounted gestures still matter. They keep the hours from becoming too narrow. They make the shed less cold around the heart. During the pause, you may hear more clearly what has been constant all along. Water moving somewhere outside, a gull on the roof, a cart or lorry passing, the low boom of something shifted on the quay, a murmur from another room or shed. Work sounds, when you are inside them, can vanish into usefulness, but rest brings them forward. You sit with your cup and listen. Reykjavik's harbour is never silent. Even in its quieter moments, it breathes, knocks, creaks, calls, and settles, like a large sleeping creature made of wood, rope, iron, and water. The pause cannot last, and because everyone knows that, it does not need to be lamented. You take the last sip, perhaps stronger and cooler now, and feel the bitterness sit on the tongue. Food is wrapped again. Cups are put aside. Aprons are adjusted. A worker makes a small sound while rising, not quite a groan, not quite a laugh. The room understands. Bodies are bodies, they bend, tire, warm, chill, and continue. We rise with you, returning from the cup to the crate, from the softened pause to the waiting line of herring. The afternoon begins with a slight reluctance, as it often does, then becomes itself. Your hands are clean enough for a moment, then slick again. The knife is dry enough, then wet again. The bench is clear enough, then crowded again. This return of mess after cleaning might discourage someone unused to process work, but you understand it. Cleanliness here is not a final state. It is something made repeatedly so the work can continue. Order is not permanent. It is tended. A worker tends order the way a lamp is tended, returning to it before it fails. A gust of wind pushes at the door, and the latch rattles. Everyone glances up, then back down. The sound belongs to the place. Wind in Reykjavik can make even solid walls feel temporary. Yet people have built lives with it for generations. You learn which doors need a shoulder, which windows whistle, which path home is worst when rain comes sideways. The herring shed holds against the gust, and the room resumes its rhythm. Outside weather is always speaking, but inside work answers in the older language of hands, tools, and need. As the afternoon lengthens, your thoughts move more slowly. They no longer jump toward many things. They drift from fish to barrel, from barrel to coffee, from coffee to home, from home back to fish. This drifting is not carelessness. It is the mind conserving itself, while habit holds the task steady. You remain present enough. The knife is guided. The fish is handled. The salt is respected. In long labor, full brightness of attention cannot burn all day. Instead, workers learn a lower flame, steady and warm, able to last through the hours. A small disagreement may pass nearby, perhaps over space, timing, or how something was packed. It rises and falls quickly, softened by the fact that everyone is tired and everyone must keep working together. The forewoman may settle it with a few words, or the workers themselves may let it pass, because not every irritation deserves a place in memory. Such moments are part of real workplaces. Calm is not the absence of all friction. Calm is the room's ability to return to itself afterward, to take up the knife again, to keep the day from becoming sharp. The scent of salt grows heavy in the throat. You may drink water when you can, though the water is cold and tastes faintly of the cup or pail. It clears the mouth and wakes the teeth. Your lips may feel dry despite the damp air. A strand of hair sticks again near your temple. You push it back. Your hands return to the fish. These tiny bodily needs mark the afternoon more faithfully than any clock. Thirst, ache, chill, hunger, warmth, and relief, each takes a turn speaking softly through the body. When the catch is nearly ordered, the room's energy changes. It is not exactly faster, but more focused. People want to finish cleanly. The last barrels must not be sloppy. The last fish must not be treated as leftovers of attention. You feel that quiet discipline come through the line. Less talk now, more listening to the task. The herring shed seems to narrow around the remaining work, as if the whole room is leaning toward completion. You lean with it, steadying the fish, guiding the knife, placing each cleaned body into its proper future. A filled barrel is moved, and the floor trembles faintly. The sound is deep, wooden and satisfying. Another worker wipes her forehead with her sleeve, leaving a pale mark of salt. Someone at the doorway calls about transport. A reply comes from inside. The day is beginning to pass from hands to records, from benches to storage, from wet immediacy to accounted goods. This passage is ordinary, but it has a quiet dignity. The catch has been received, handled, preserved, counted and made ready. Many hands have done one large thing by doing many small things well. You may straighten and look over the shed for a moment. It is not beautiful in any polished sense. The walls are stained, the floor is wet, the air is thick, the workers are tired, yet the room has a beauty of use, of purpose fulfilled without display. Barrels stand where crates once crowded. Benches show the marks of labor. Lamps glow through damp air. People move with the slow competence of those who have given their strength to something necessary. We stand there with you for only a breath, then return to the cloth, the water, the ending. Cleaning begins again, and this time it carries the feeling of the day closing. You wipe, rinse, lift, hang, scrape, and set aside. The motions are different from gutting, but still repetitive enough to soothe the mind. Water over wood, cloth in circles, tools returned, tubs emptied. The room's sharp edges soften as the mess recedes. A clean bench at day's end is like a cleared thought. It does not erase what happened, but it gives the mind a place to rest. Tomorrow may come, but tonight the table can be still. The air changes when the main work is finished. It feels larger, even before the door opens. The absence of constant cutting leaves space around sounds. You hear individual footsteps again, individual voices, the small drip from a pail, the rustle of a coat being lifted from a peg. Your own breathing is more noticeable. The body, freed from the bench, discovers how tired it is. This discovery comes gradually, then all at once. Shoulders lower, knees feel loose, hands ache in detail. You flex them, watching the fingers open like pale little hinges of bone. The evening outside is clearer than expected. The earlier scrap of pale sky has widened, and REYKJAVIK's roofs hold a gentle wash of light. Wet surfaces shine quietly. The harbour water looks pewter, darker in the ripples, bright along the edges where lamps and sky meet. You stand at the doorway for a moment before stepping out, letting the cold air move across your face and under the damp edge of your scarf. After the shed, even a chilly evening can feel fresh. The lungs receive it gratefully, and the whole body seems to listen. Walking home in clearer weather changes the day behind you. It does not remove fatigue, but it gives fatigue a better companion. Your shoes still feel heavy. Your hands still smell faintly of herring. Your back still knows the bench. Yet the open sky allows the mind to loosen. You see smoke lifting straighter than usual. You see a child balancing along a curb. You see a woman shaking a mat near a doorway. You see a soldier pause to ask directions in awkward Icelandic or English, and someone answer with patient gestures. The town keeps unfolding around you. At a corner, the harbour sounds thin, and household sounds begin. A door closing, a pot lid, a voice calling a name. Somewhere, music from a radio slips through a window and vanishes as you pass. The tune may be foreign, carried by wartime presence, or local, familiar enough to hum without thinking. Reykjavik's evenings in the 1940s can hold both, old habits and new sounds sharing the damp air. You walk through them as a worker going home, with the day's labor drying in streaks on your sleeves and the thought of warmth drawing you onward. Home receives you again, but each homecoming is slightly different. Tonight the room may be warmer. Tonight someone may have already set water to heat. Tonight the bread may be fresh enough to smell sweet near the table. Or perhaps the room is cold and you must coax the stove yourself. Either way, the threshold changes your pace. You stop being one of several women in a shed and become yourself in another set of relations. Daughter, mother, sister, wife, lodger, neighbor, worker still, but differently held. The apron smell follows, but the room wraps it in home. Your hands enter warm water, and the day begins to loosen from them. Soap slips over the skin. The knuckles redden. The small cut stings with a clean, bright insistence. You take your time if you can, because washing after fish work is not merely cleaning. It is a boundary. Harbour to home, shed to table, wage labor to evening labor, public room to private room. Each rinse carries a little of the bench away, though never all of it. Some trace remains, enough to remind you where the day was spent and what it made. Supper, when it comes, steadies the room. Food has a way of closing a day without declaring it closed. A bowl set down, bread passed, coffee poured, a spoon lifted. You eat with the appetite of someone who has stood long hours in cold air. The first mouthful is plain and good. Conversation may move around you or through you, while your body receives warmth and salt of another kind. The herring of the shed has become distant for the moment, replaced by the food before you, the cup in your hand, and the slow easing of hunger. After supper the mind may brighten for a little while, as if food has lent it a small lamp. You might tell a fuller story then. The barrel that leaked, the new worker learning quickly, the forewoman's remark, the clear patch of sky, the amount of fish handled if you know it. Someone listens while repairing something, or while leaning back with tired eyes. These household stories are not grand records, but they are how work enters family memory. They carry the shed into the room in manageable pieces, with warmth around them and no need to hurry. Later, quiet returns. The radio lowers or is turned off. Dishes are washed. A chair is moved back. Clothes are hung nearer warmth. You inspect your hands again, perhaps rubbing a little fat or cream into the skin if there is any to spare. The feeling is tender, almost private. Hands that have worked publicly all day become personal again at night. You know every sore place. You press the thumb joint, smooth the palm, check the wrapped finger. The skin shines slightly in the lamplight. These hands will be asked for tomorrow, so tonight you give them care. Needlework, if it comes, has a slower music than the shed. Thread pulls through fabric with a whisper. The lamp hums faintly, or perhaps only seems to. Outside, a vehicle passes and fades. Rain does not come after all, or if it does, it comes lightly. The room's warmth gathers near the ceiling and leaves the floor cooler, so your feet seek a rug or a warmer place. You mend a hem with the same patience you give a barrel, because a hem also preserves something useful. Work teaches that useful things deserve repair before they fail. There is a softness in thinking of all the hands across Reykjavik settling at the same hour. Fishermen's hands, shopkeepers' hands, clerks' hands, laundresses' hands, builders' hands, cooks' hands, children's ink-stained hands, and your own fish-scented hands. Each pair has carried its portion of the day. Each pair will loosen in sleep, open on a blanket, curl near a pillow, or rest near another hand. The town's labor quiets not all at once, but in rooms scattered under the same northern sky. We let that thought settle gently, wide but warm. Before sleep you may hear the harbour once more in the distance. Not clearly perhaps, only a low sound beyond walls and weather. It may be a boat, a chain, water against stone, or the imagination repeating what it knows too well. Either way, it does not call you back tonight. The shift is over. The fish are salted. The bench is clean. Your coat hangs where it can dry, slowly, if the room is kind. You lie down, and the body takes its time finding comfort, turning once, then again, until the aches fit around the bed. The mind empties gradually, not by force, but by losing interest in its own sharp edges. Tomorrow's early start appears, then fades. The forewoman's voice appears, then fades. The silver fish, the wet floor, the coffee cup, the open door, the clear evening sky. Each image passes as if seen through drifting mist. You do not need to hold them. They have already done their work. We leave them moving slowly, like small boats in dark water, while your breathing lengthens and the room grows less distinct around you. Sleep is not instant after labor. Sometimes the body hums for a while, remembering motion. The wrist may twitch slightly, as if making one more cut. The fingers may curl and open. The back may ache, then soften. This is the day's rhythm, leaving by degrees. It is not unpleasant when you understand it. It is only the body finishing its own quiet paperwork, noting where strength was spent, where salt stung, where warmth returned. Outside, Reykjavik lies between mountain, bay, and weather, and the harbor keeps watch without needing your eyes. By the time deep sleep comes, the shed is far away and still near, held somewhere below thought. The barrels remain in darkness, the knives rest, the benches dry, the gulls are quiet or have moved elsewhere. The sea continues, of course, because the sea does not take a full night's rest. It lifts and lowers against the harbor stones, carrying boats, reflections, cold, and the promise of another catch. But for now you are not required. That is the gift of night. After a completed working day, nothing in your hands needs doing until morning. And morning, when it arrives again, comes softly through the ordinary signs. A dim window, a cool floor, the remembered route to the harbor, and the knowledge that the Reykjavik herring gutter's day is waiting in its patient, salt-scented room. You rise into that waiting day once more, but gently now, as if the whole memory of the Reykjavik herring shed has softened at the edges. The harbor is still cool, the benches are still plain, the salt still waits in pale heaps, and the barrels stand with their wooden sides dark from damp, holding the quiet result of many careful hands. You feel the knife for a moment, not as a sharp thing, but as a familiar weight that belonged to your working hours, a small tool in a long human chain of sea, weather, hunger, and care. The voices around you lower as evening comes again, and the last work is no longer hurried. A cloth passes over the bench. Water runs across the boards and carries away scales that once flashed like tiny pieces of northern light. Your apron hangs from its peg, stiff with salt, drying as well as the damp air allows. Outside, Reykjavik gathers itself into lamps and smoke and dark water, while the harbor ropes creak softly in the wind. The filled barrels remain behind in the shed, patient and silent, as the salted herring begins its slow keeping without you. Your hands are clean enough now. They are tired enough now. They have held the cold fish, guided the blade, lifted the cup, tied the scarf, opened the door, and found the road home. There is nothing more they need to prove tonight. The shed settles after you leave it. Benches empty, knives put away, tubs turned over, the floor washed and shining faintly under the low lamp. The town outside grows quieter, and the sea keeps moving in the dark, but your part of the day's work has gone still at last. So you let the harbor fall behind you, step by step, until only its salt remains faintly on your skin and in your memory. The room at home is warm, the window dark, the chair waiting, and somewhere far off the barrels rest in their rows, holding the day's silver harvest in wood and salt. The knife is still, the bench is bare, and the Reykjavik night closes softly around the work that is done.